Good morning. It is 6:35. It is Thursday, April 30th, 2020. It's 49 degrees and overcast, but it's getting up to the low 60s today. We'll get back to the weather in a little bit, but it is overcast again. It is 49 degrees. Welcome to Mornings with Bob Marrone. I am Bob Marrone. This is Radio Westchester, your radio station at the train station. We're not at the train station right now. We are broadcasting remotely to keep things safe, obviously. We'll get to how and where we broadcast a little later in these next few minutes. First, let's take a look at the headlines. More than 1 million now have gotten the virus in the United States. Deaths have surpassed 60,000. Here in Westchester, 1,000. But things are beginning to level off, and we'll get into those details in a little bit. The president is not going to extend federal guidelines today. It's not going to change much that you see because most of the guidelines now have been embraced by the states, and right now they have jurisdiction, but nonetheless, he is not going to extend them. We've got also 70% of inmates, a study now in U.S. prisons that have, or at least test positive for the virus. And here we're looking for the possibility of reopening some parks around Rockland County and maybe elsewhere by the end of the week. Stay with us. First, we have to go to the weather. You're listening to Radio Westchester, and the weather's brought to you exclusively by United Hebrew of New Rochelle, voted one of America's best rehabilitation and senior care campuses, and it's right here in New Rochelle. Visit uhgc.org. It is 49, getting up to 61 today, maybe 62. It is overcast as we speak. However, the good news is the temperature. It's going to get up to 61, maybe 62 today. Tonight, periods of rain, drizzle, and oh no, I missed this. Excuse me. This breezy with showers, though, is likely. We had told you yesterday the rain would start today, and it is breezy with showers. The temperature 61. Tonight, more rain, but mostly drizzle and fog. The temperature will be 54. Friday, cloudy with periods of rain. The high will be 64 degrees. The overnight low will be 52. And on into Saturday, morning clouds giving way to more sun. You thought I was going to say rain, didn't you? The high will be 66 degrees. The overnight low will be 50. And we'll take a poke at Sunday. Morning clouds will give way to still more sun. The high will be 66 degrees. Good morning once again, and welcome to Radio Westchester, your radio station at the train station. This is Mornings with Bob Marrone. I am he. As we get into the news of the day, the coronavirus is still with us, going to be with us for a while, but there is some good news. Even Jared Kushner got on the stump yesterday, although spinning a bit, but that's his job. Praised the administration's response to the coronavirus pandemic as a great success story, less than a day after the number of confirmed cases topped 1 million. Kushner painted a rosy picture for Fox and Friends in the morning, saying that the federal government rose to the challenge, and this is a great success story, and I think that that's really what needs to be told. And he thinks that things will be, quote, rocking by July. As for numbers, we've got 1 million cases in the United States, 60,000 deaths. Here in Westchester, we've passed the 1,000th death, and we'll be talking more about that a little later. Again, as noted, George Latimer, the county executive, said that is a grim milestone, 1,000, and that the impact of the virus has been profound. He said also the death rate has slowed in the last few days. There are 7,679 active cases in Westchester County. That number clearly dropping. He said, though, that food bank numbers have jumped dramatically, and he salutes Feeding Westchester and other organizations that have stepped up during the pandemic. Now, no incidents, by the way, of crowding, he says, at two county golf courses that opened over the weekend, so that is good. And again, he reminds people that it's foolish for those who are trying to rush the reopening process. He urges people to use common sense rather than spread false information about the COVID virus. And Florida is going to lift its stay at home order come Monday, by the way. These are just little flashes and lights going on across the state where things, not that they're getting back to normal because people will still have to be extremely careful, but there are little signs of things opening up. Where we have some problems locally is in family courts. Legal experts say many parents are dealing with disrupted visitations and limited access to family court during the pandemic. One, Andrea Grimalski, a family court attorney, says people are taking it upon their own initiative to deny access to the non custodial parent. The situation has been made more frustrating for some since family court is only open these days for emergencies. The Legal Aid Society of Orange County is encouraging parents to communicate and make decisions that are in the best interests of the child. There is yet no indication one family court will be reopened. And if you're waiting for sports, as we all are, there seems to be a little bit of hope as we head towards June and July. Keep your fingers crossed. But one thing that happens every year will not happen. Derek Jeter, Larry Walker, and the rest of this year's Baseball Hall of Fame class will have to wait another year for their big moment at Cooperstown. The Hall of Fame announced yesterday that it has canceled the July 26th induction ceremony because of the coronavirus pandemic. Instead, the class will be included at next year's festivities on July 25th. 2021. A record crowd had been expected this summer at the small town in upstate New York, Cooperstown, of course, to honor Jeter, the former New York Yankees captain, who was elected in January by the Baseball Writers Association. It is 6:42. New York State Senate Majority Leader Andrea Stewart Cousins is calling on the federal government as the state faces possible $13 billion deficit because of the virus pandemic. This in News 12 this morning. She says the state may be forced to cut their budget if they don't get the necessary funds. Stewart Cousins also says that despite thousands handling phones, 400,000 people are still trying to get unemployment insurance. The Department of Labor said yesterday, or rather on Monday, that New York is still waiting for a $4 billion federal loan to come through because the state alone cannot afford to pay the 1 million people who are unemployed long term. Now, President Donald Trump, some say, insinuated on Tuesday that federal aid would be dependent on states putting a stop to sanctuary cities. Stewart Cousins says her top priority going forward includes helping more people get tested and salvaging the budget as we move forward. And a little more details coming in now on the president's plans. The president, this out of Associated Press last night, Donald Trump said Wednesday the federal government will not be extending its coronavirus social distancing guidelines once they expire. That's today. And his son-in-law and advisor, Jared Kushner, echoed those words. Meanwhile, Trump says he plans to resume official travel with a trip to Arizona next week, and he said he's hoping to hold mass campaign rallies in the coming months with thousands of supporters, even though medical experts have said there is little hope of having a vaccine by then. Putting a positive spin on the numbers, the U.S. death toll now has surpassed those in the Vietnam War. Trump delivered his daily upbeat and Kushner described the administration's much criticized response, as we said earlier, as a great success story. Now, as we pivot back to Governor Cuomo, and it's about time someone took action. That's commentary, but to keep essential workers safe battling the COVID-19 outbreak, Governor Cuomo is calling on the MTA to come up with a way to disinfect every subway train every single night. The effort comes after he held up the cover of the Daily News on Tuesday that showed homeless people and their possessions on a subway car. He called on Washington to put politics aside and fund state and local governments. He says the federal government should be using money to help first responders, not large corporations. He also ripped Rick Scott, the governor of Florida, I'm sorry, Senator Rick Scott, the former governor of Florida, now senator, for his comments earlier this week. He said, quote, "It's not fair to taxpayers of Florida. We will sit here, we live within our means, and then New York, Illinois, California, and other states don't. And we're supposed to go bail them out. That's not right." So he said. As he huddled with the advisors over the weekend, President Donald Trump was still fuming over his sliding poll numbers and the onslaught of criticism he was facing for suggesting a day earlier that ingesting disinfectant might prove effective against coronavirus. Within moments, the president was shouting not at the aides in the room, but into the phone at his campaign manager, Brad Pascal. Three people familiar with the matter told CNN, shifting the blame away from himself. Trump berated Pascal for a recent spate of damaging poll numbers, even at one point threatening to sue him. It's not clear how serious the president's threat of a lawsuit was. The White House did not immediately respond to a CNN request for comment, and the Trump campaign themselves declined to comment. It is 6:46. As we noted earlier, information is rolling in that it's estimated now, and again, they haven't done all the testing, that some 70% of prison inmates around the country may well test positive for the virus. Now, here in Westchester, though, antibody testing is going to be available in the next few days, and it will be available at the Caremont Medical Center. Again, the Caremont Medical Center, we're trying to dig up more information about that and where it is. When we come back, we have to go to break now and share a little bit of the weather with you once again. We'll talk about school funding and how much of it is at risk. The weather is brought to you this morning exclusively by United Hebrew of New Rochelle, voted one of America's best rehabilitation and senior care campuses, and it's right here in New Rochelle. Visit uhgc.org. Right now it's 49 degrees and overcast. We've got rain in the forecast today, though even as we head to temperatures in the low 60s, it'll be breezy with showers likely. The wind will be out of the southeast, 15 to 25 miles an hour. Now tonight, periods of rain, drizzle, and fog. The temperature 54, at least that's about where we'll level off at. Friday, that would be tomorrow. More rain, unfortunately, cloudy with periods of rain. The high will be 64, the overnight low will be 52. Saturday, morning clouds gives way to more sun, high 68, overnight low 50. And on Sunday, mixed sun and clouds with late day showers. So the weekend window there is open for you. The high will be 69 degrees. The overnight low will be 51. And the weather's brought to you exclusively by United Hebrew of New Rochelle, voted one of America's best rehabilitation and senior care campuses, and it's right here in New Rochelle. Visit uhgc.org. And the first half hour of the program, supported by Aging Issues Management, Aging Issues Radio, the law firm of Payne and Kahn, Dominic's Fine Cigars, Plug-in Virtual Reality, and our friends at the Beachmont Tavern. Remember, they open at 11:30 in the morning. They're open all day for you to order food and go pick it up or order it and have it delivered. And remember, they can also, because they are a tavern, include a libation in that. And they're open at 1 o'clock in the morning, so if you want an evening libation, well, you can order that too. The phone number is 914-636-9533. 914-636-9533. And a lot of new news out there, and we're going to get to some of it even as we speak. Now, we mentioned school funding. Right now, the way the state is assessing its funds, and we're talking about New York City schools, we're talking about the schools that all of you have your children go to here in Westchester, and of course across the state. School funding, we're told now that it could be cut by as much as one half. Again, as much as one half. And there is this debate, and it's interesting without political spin, but there's this debate over whether or not the federal government should help the states. That is a moral issue that I'll weigh in on in a little while, because certainly a lot of the states that are having the problems, because they're dense states, also have a lot of social services. But there are also states that contribute more to the federal government than they receive. And one of the whole purposes of a national government is that during crisis that resources do get shared. So we'll talk about that a little later on, but there are a number of other issues for us to talk about as we pass through 650. U.S. deaths from the novel coronavirus topped $60,000, 60,000 on Wednesday, and the outbreak will soon be deadlier than any flu season since '67, and certainly more than the Vietnam War. Just a note. Now, mere days after the Matanuska-Sustina Borough School Board 5-2 approved to remove 5 books from the English curriculum, residents have been actively publicizing the ban, reported CNN. And imagine fighting over published books in this day and age. Months after helping the Kansas City Chiefs win the Super Bowl, Laurent Duvernay-Tardif is facing different challenges as he is on the coronavirus front lines. He's also in the off season. He is a medical professional. So imagine that. You go from fighting giant linemen to fighting the coronavirus. 2 days ago, President Trump signed an executive order to keep meat processing plants open through the pandemic, despite union concerns for worker safety. One organization says that 20 workers have died from the virus. Over 20 facilities have already closed due to infections, leading to concerns over meat supply shortage. So the question now becomes, in as much as the president has invoked the War Powers Act, what people will they get to work? And those things are being negotiated even as we speak to make sure that people have the proper protections and perhaps are paid as some sort of a premium to go in and get the job done. Well, it's a smaller world after all. Officials in Florida and Disney World could reopen the Magic Kingdom as early as June after a lengthy lockdown, but with half as much glitter and magic, according to the region, according to reports. A task force has laid out guidelines for it that will have distancing practice, the cleaning rides, et cetera, et cetera. It's going to be a very different place indeed. At the White House yesterday, Dr. Anthony Fauci spoke about encouraging results of a study drug called remdesivir, which may help patients with COVID. Now, what they're saying about this drug, it's not a cure. It is a treatment. And fundamentally, a majority, not a small majority, but nonetheless a majority of the people in the tests, instead of getting better in 14 days, they got better in 11. So that's good no matter how you slice it, a few days and helping you feel better. But I think the key thing is if you're not getting worse, that is just a terrific thing. So they're going to try to rush that as a treatment, as a placeholder on an emergency basis, as soon as they can get it out the door. The class of 2024 might begin the best 4 years of their lives, but on a laptop in their childhood bedrooms. This is a story in the New York Post covered properly. They haven't been able to make their deposits for school. They've been trying to sign up and get things rolling. In fact, some high school seniors still had a final decision to make among one or two, perhaps, final schools. So that is becoming a problem both for the universities, the colleges, and the students themselves. Meanwhile, on the lighter side, saying thank you to our everyday heroes for being on the front lines during the virus pandemic may never be enough. But to honor their work, toy maker Mattel is launching a set of collectible action figures with proceeds going to communities in need. Very reminiscent, isn't it, of 9/11, when after 9/11 we had different dolls of firemen, different dolls of police officers and other first responders. All righty, it is 6:55. Welcome to Radio Westchester. Welcome to Mornings with Bob Marrone. I am he. There's so much news this morning. Let's get to some of it. I got to get to these stories here. All right. Beer sales are soaring. Can you believe it? Yes, I do, because people are home, nothing to do, or they're doing work around the house, but they don't have to shave. They can stay in their pajamas and they can watch ball games and, have a bubbly or two. So that's something that is worth looking at. Now, what I've been trying to do is look up some other news and get us out of this this rather odd, almost negative situation that even makes everybody negative half the time, or complaining or depressed. But the Pentagon acknowledges now that there are still UFOs out there. The other day, they outed films. I found that fascinating because I'm not a believer in UFOs as such. Because with all of the technology we have today, with all the satellites, with all the planes we have flying, with all of the, just same thing with ghosts, with all of the cell phones out there, we have so few sightings. Now, what I am a believer in is I do believe that we, the Russians, the Chinese, the Israelis, the Brits, the French, and all of these sophisticated technological societies, I believe that we have plenty of stuff that we don't know about. And I do believe that had someone else come up with drones, hello, China, before we did, and it appears that they did, they've probably been using them long before they let us know that they existed. So what I'm going to put a stake in the ground and say, I don't believe that UFOs are anything other than that, but that they are unidentified flying objects, but they're not from outer space. They're not from another planet. Now, a story I was looking at that I'm going to get to after we check in with the weather another time. Again, every 15 minutes we do that for you. Switzerland has tried, excuse me, not Switzerland, please excuse me. Sweden has done something that other countries haven't done. They have decided to just tell people to be careful and not use social distancing. In fact, for the most part, what they have been doing is saying, well, let's let nature take its course and just be careful. But now it appears that their numbers of deaths are going up. Now, every society has a right to do what they want to do so long as it doesn't affect other people. The question is that acceptable to them or not? When we come back, let's get back to another hit of the weather. And the weather this morning is brought to you exclusively by United Hebrew of New Rochelle, voted one of America's best rehabilitation and senior care campuses. And it's right here in New Rochelle. Visit uhgc.org. It is 49 right now. It's going to get up to 62 today, but unfortunately, even while it's only overcast now, it's going to rain today. It'll be breezy with showers likely. Tonight, periods of more rain, drizzle, and fog. The temperature 54, the wind out of the southeast 10 to 20 miles an hour. On into Friday, cloudy periods, still of more rain, 64. Overnight gets down to 52, but we roll into Saturday, and those clouds from the night before will give way to sun. The high will be near 70. That's Saturday. Circle it in your calendar if you don't know what day it is. That's 2 days from now. The overnight low will be 50. Sunday, mixed sun and clouds with late day showers. The high will be 69. The overnight low will be 51 degrees. And the top of the hour is brought to you by Aging Issues Management and their partners, Aging Issues Radio, the law firm of Payne & Con, Dominic's Pine Cigars, Plug-in Virtual Reality, and our friends at the Beachmont Tavern. They're open at 11:30 today. They'll be open till 1 o'clock in the morning tomorrow. 636-9533, 636-9533. Call them up order a libation with that burger or those chicken wings. They have a wonderful um, menu of foods and other tasty items. And of course, you can get a bubbly with your meal. You call them up, they have it set up. We just walk in the front door, the tables are there. You pick up the bag and you go. Welcome back. It is 7:01. You're listening to Mornings with Bob Marrone. I am Bob Marrone. This is Radio Westchester, your radio station at the train station. And of course, we're not at the train station right now. We are, like everyone else, broadcasting remotely, not seeing guests or even engineers unless they have to fix something in person. We are all by our lonesome, and you also get to hear some of the things that we do. It's called stage crafting and stage direction when I say I got to press this button or not. Welcome to the program, though. We are on the air, and we're not video feeding at the present time, but you can listen on all of the various outlets. Let's start on the video outlets because many of you are on Facebook all day long, and well, we are there, and we are there with you now. And we have a placeholder that says it's audio only. We are on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and Periscope. We also are on the all of the audio channels. Of course, our original, go to our Facebook page or go to our, well, you go to our Facebook page and you got it there. But if you go to radiowestchester.com, Mornings with Bob Marrone, or you go to the aggregators, the apps that aggregate streaming and podcast. Ours is My Tuner Radio, but we're also on TuneIn Radio, or Spotify as well, and a number of other outlets. So welcome to the program. Also, by the way, iHeartRadio and iTunes. Sometimes I think that it's too much. Well, something happened in Brooklyn yesterday. If there are two things, well, there are many things that the crisis is shedding a light on, and it's not a good one. One, and we've heard from one person involved with the station whose stepfather has not been treated well. I've got a friend, or at least had to fight to get him tested. I have a friend, also a very close friend, in another nursing home who has the virus, who has worked his way through it, but knew very little about his treatment. And to get the temperature fixed in his room, we even had to go to the National VA. But that is the way nursing homes are operating. Now, on one hand, some of them, these nursing homes are really very good. But they also, though, have been living in a bubble of their own set of rules that the state more or less says it's okay, but which it appears no one thought through. It appears that when this is over, we're going to have to set up a much more rigorous overview of nursing homes and how nursing homes, A, communicate with the public, B, how they respond to pandemics, and C, quite frankly, how they communicate with the state. Now, there are a lot of rules and laws, HIPAA and everything else, but a lot of people in nursing homes, they're just there and everybody else in their family's gone. They're speaking for themselves. Or if they could, or they do have an advocate, it's very hard to get through to who you call. You call the doctor? Do you call the floor that they're on? How do you do it? So I think we're going to see, and I don't want to call them scandals. I'm going to call them for now weaknesses in the system. And certainly, nursing homes are turning out to be one of them. And for all of the governor's good work during this crisis, a lot of his answers on nursing homes have been sternly inappropriate. Um, I know he was concerned that they should be able to do what they should do, and that if someone had to go back to a nursing home, they should go back to the nursing home. But that was based, had they been tested with the virus, but that was based on the fact that the nursing home had the ability to quarantine them, and it's based on our common assumption that they would have the ability to communicate with family and keep those who are infected away from those who are not. It's again, that's one of the weaknesses that the system uncovered. This virus has uncovered another huge issue that it has uncovered, and this is something for the right and left, even on the extremes, to think about a lot. Is we have been using our schools as food banks, food kitchens. Now, that's a good thing that we do at the end of the day from a human standpoint because these kids weren't eating otherwise. But that we have allowed our society, that we have allowed parents, and I'm not talking about where two parents have to work and my God, there's hardly time to make lunch, breakfast. But from where I come from, and I know that sounds like, oh, all us old white males, but well, usually you make lunch the night before. But whatever it is, and I don't know, I'm going to cut them slack for now, but we need to take a hard look at why our parents, and I'm going to use the word failing. It's not, no, it's because we're working. You're still failing to provide food for your kid. But what we've done is this crisis has uncovered the fact, and it's no surprise to people who work in those businesses, but they have to be very careful or they work in social services to say what they say or they could lose their jobs. But what we have, and let me cut to the chase, is a lot of failed parenting out there. Now we have a lot of circumstances that they can't get around. I get it. So let's create a subset of failures with a good excuse. It's like you couldn't go to school because you were sick. I get it. But you still didn't get to school. But so serious is this problem that schools in New York City, schools here in Westchester, schools right here in New Rochelle apparently stayed open simply because people wouldn't eat. And that's terrible. Well, as a society, we have a problem whether we want to face it or not. And this isn't the frontier where we say, too bad, let them die. Well, we can't do that either. We have to figure out, A, why these children aren't eating, and where my friends from the hard right will be right, but where they get shushed out is, well, why aren't we dealing with the parents that aren't feeding with their kids? And that's where I side with them. You know, if you don't have enough money, well, we should make sure that they have enough money in food stamps to feed their kids. If they really can't do it in the morning because of work, well, maybe we got to provide breakfast. But I'm still scratching my head over the lunch thing. But again, I admit I don't know. I don't know. I know there are a myriad of reasons, and there are good reasons in many cases. But whether they're good or not, we need to look at the fact that the richest country on earth has to leave schools open, had to leave them open, and risk the lives of people so that children could eat. And all I know is I don't think there's anything wrong with the old fashioned conservative view that one of the prime means of a parent is to provide, to put food on the table. And if people can't do it because of circumstance, we as a society have to help them. If they can't do it because they don't care, that's another matter. We need to look into why. I know I'm beating a dead horse, but it is troubling. It is troubling to no end. Now, the other issue that is arising, now again, usually we don't have this many people die at once. It certainly is no hoax, this next story. But again, it's a sticky story with a lot of little ins and outs and people who must have been looking the other way. We're also seeing a weakness in our means to bury people, or to take care of the remains of people. Here's one story. It's anecdotal. It's not anecdotal. It actually happened, and this came out of many outlets yesterday. Every local paper, every regional paper, and from CNN to Fox News to all of the major outlets, a funeral home in Brooklyn. They found 60 bodies, 4 trucks containing as many as 60 bodies discovered outside a Brooklyn funeral home after someone reported fluids dripping from the trucks. And this is the Andrew Cleckley Funeral Home. It was overwhelmed and ran out of room for bodies, which were awaiting cremation, and used the trucks for storage. And we've seen that in hospitals, by the way, and I have a first person story there. One of my closest friends is a security officer in one of these major hospitals, and a major hospital, and he rolls the bodies out to refrigeration trucks in some instances. Now, at least one of the trucks was unrefrigerated, according to one law enforcement official, and the bodies were put on ice. CNN reached out to the Cleckley Funeral Home, and someone who identified himself as the owner would not comment. Now, the closer one looks at the story, and it depends on who's reporting it, they're really, it's got to be said, the news is awfully selective. And as much as I yell and scream and get upset about the president calling it fake news, both sides in this thing, they sort of print what they want to print, and the papers that were a little to the left didn't want to get into the fact that this particular funeral home may not have even had a license, that this particular funeral home was on the second floor of another building, never heard of it, and that it seems to me, and there was no record of having this funeral home be licensed. Now, I didn't see it on some outlets, but I saw it on others. How in God's name can a funeral parlor happen? Now, this was in an inner city, underfunded neighborhood. I get it, but still, you have to get the right licenses. You have to do the right thing. But some of the outlets I read, they didn't say this, and others I did. We cannot be selectively framing the news that makes it better for our political point of view. And because all it does is it makes it easy, whether there was a left person in the White House or now with someone to the right, when he yells fake news, there are some people that need to look themselves in the face or in the mirror, even when they know the president is wrong, because you make it easier when you do that. So that's how I feel about that. It's just there's a problem with the system. Now, this isn't the only. This is a case where, and I sort of switched it into a fake news issue, but we not only should be looking at these funeral homes that turn out may not even be legitimate. And again, who knew that? We need to be looking at the funeral homes and the entire system that doesn't have the means to deal with a pandemic. What about if we were in war? What about when we were in war? What happened, or was it not so concentrated in one city? What would happen had 9/11 not been the true end, a one-day event? We thought for a while there that we were going to have, as President Bush said at the time, this could go on for another 5 years. We're going to have other incidents. What if planes had hit a couple of other buildings in New York? What if we had thousands? We do not, in our society, again, in the richest country on earth, we don't have the ability to put these bodies in cold storage. Now, there are businesses that do that throughout all the major cities. There are buildings called cold storage buildings. Now, it's true they're there for food, but certainly there has to be a way to take care of this better than we have. This is not the first story that we've seen. So this is 3 areas. These are 3 areas that need to take a hard look, and I'm going to recover them again. The way we manage nursing homes, the way we license them. And look, I got to tell you, there are a lot of low-end nursing homes, particularly in some nonprofits, that were funded by political money. And these are things that conservatives will tell you when they be right on the money. They're funded, or money's often given to politicians. They open a nursing home, they throw old people in there, and they're treated like garbage. We need to look at that. But in general, now that the baby boomers are aging, most of the sponsors we were getting on radio, most of the new businesses opening up, or a lot of the new businesses are nursing homes, and they're doing a better job, those that are opening with these tiered services, which is to say, here you are a certain age, We're going to get you an apartment, but don't worry, it's on the same campus. Now you need assisted living. You can stay in the same organization, maybe not the same building or apartment, but you're going to go now with assisted living. And then when you need a true nursing home, you go to a nursing home. And then if you need care for people who are in very serious shape, they have that too. They're doing a wonderful job of building. But now we know there are weaknesses in the system. This would be the time to fix them now and to lay out very specific criteria of what they will do when we have a crisis like this. So the opportunity is there. And I suspect that one of the things, kind of like when a plane crashes, a model plane crash, notice you haven't heard, although we certainly aren't flying a lot lately, but after that 787 had an electrical problem about 4 years ago, they switched the batteries, and then it had a second problem. Now those planes don't even heat up. Same thing's going to happen with the dash, with the 737 dash. So these kinds of problems early on lead to a much better product down the road. And since so many nursing homes are expanding, we hope that they do that. But we're going to have to keep an eye on those low end ones, particularly the ones that are funded by the government with the best of intentions or the best of political intentions to get votes, and they're given to assemblymen and councilmen and people like that to set up their nonprofit where their family runs the place and people don't get good care. So let's look at the nursing homes. Let's look at the funeral business, that they have the means during a pandemic, or for that matter, during a national emergency, to take care of who needs taken care of. One of the things about Western society, in fact, most societies, is we have a great respect for the dead and those who pass on and their memories. And we certainly need to have a system that doesn't allow 60 bodies to rot in a truck as they did in Brooklyn. And first in, last out, woe be to us if we don't, as a society, take a real hard look at why schools are food banks. And quite frankly, they do a better job, at least in New York City, as food banks than they do as educational entities. They want to pass everybody and have the unions pay them lots of money. I'm willing to pay teachers lots of money and executives lots of money. I don't have any problem. There was that big beef a few years ago, and I disagreed with the governor because he didn't want superintendents in the suburbs to make as much money as they did. Pay them what the market calls for. Pay them well. Pay teachers well. Back in the 70s, they were paid like garbage and treated like garbage. The union did a good job, but then it went too far because now they run the schools. The schools are a means to provide work. That's not what they're for. The goal is to educate children. And they want to get people pushed through the program. They want violent kids to not be treated as if they're violent kids. They want people who can't read and write to move on to high school because it looks good in the numbers. So yeah, they do a better job of feeding it, but that's not what the schools are for. So those are the three things I wanted to highlight today, and then I'm going to wrap up this monologue with what's going on in Sweden. We all should keep an eye on it. Now I asked a number of people this over the last few days, a number of different guests. And it's very hard to do because people will jump all over you. And it's looking at the crisis and coming out of it in the abstract. And why I say the abstract, you apply feeling in an intellectual way, but you're just looking at the gross numbers like a general in war, where we're going to send 1 million men up that hill to make a full frontal assault, and the full 1/3 of them are going to be casualties. 100,000 are going to die, and 200,000 are going to be wounded. And we know that statistically. That's the abstract. But we're going to win the battle, and it's better for everyone. Well, there is an element of that to this that none of us wants to face. And I'm not saying that that's how we should look at it. I'm simply saying you have a country like Sweden, a socialist country, very successful socialist democracy, that decided to do that. Now, they're still having deaths, and now their deaths are going up. But here's the magical question. If other people in those Nordic countries, if the Finns and the Danes and others and the Norwegians start to die because they did that, was it the right thing to do? Was it the right thing? And maybe one day we'll look back. One thing that they will achieve in Sweden because they didn't do what we did is in the natural state of things. Now, remember, we as humans interfere with the natural state all the time. That's why we're humans. That's why we live longer. So the nonsense, well, it's natural, where to go? Well, no, it's not. Otherwise, we wouldn't have any medicine. We let people die of every disease that exists. We let them die of infections. We let them die from epilepsy when they bang their head on the wall. We'd let them die from heart attacks, and we wouldn't put in a stent. But the fact is that they will reach herd immunity, and the older and the weak will die, and natural selection will take place. Just a question before we go to break. Is that okay? Oh, I got to remember. I keep forgetting to put on the phone system, but I'm going to put it on now. This is Radio Westchester. It is 7:20. All righty, we need to take a look at the weather another time. The weather's brought to you exclusively by United Hebrew of New Rochelle, voted one of America's best rehabilitation and senior care campuses, and it's right here in New Rochelle. Visit uhgc.org. Rain is in the forecast. It's 49 and overcast, getting up to the mid-60s today, but we'll have showers likely, and they will continue into the evening along with drizzle and fog. The temperature this evening will level off at about 54. Friday, cloudy with periods of rain, a high of 64. And on into Friday night, more rain. The high 54. But guess what? Saturday figures to be a very nice day. Morning clouds giving way to sun. The high will be 66. The overnight low will be 50. And on Sunday, more nice weather. Mixed sun and clouds with late day showers. The high will be 69. The overnight low will be 51 degrees. And we get ready for our guests, but first we remind you who our sponsors are today. Don't forget to go to the Beachmont Tavern to pick up some nice food, but you got to call them first. They're the Tavern, the Beachmont Tavern. Used to be known as the Levee, yes, from that famous song. Drove my Chevy to the Levee. That was the Levee. Now the Beachmont Tavern, across from Iona College. They'll be open at 1 o'clock in the morning. 636-9533. You can order a burger. You can get fries, chicken wings. They make everything. And plus, since they're a tavern, you can say, give me a special. Well, that's something a dear friend of mine just passed, and I'm saying that in his honor. He used to like vodka. I don't know what he put in there. I don't know if there was a strip of lemon or soda, but he called it a special. You might want to order those. You can pick that up now. It's legal to pick up a drink just while all this social distancing and closures are in place. You can do that right up to 1 o'clock in the morning, and they'll have everything ready for you. 636-9533. Plug in virtualreality.com. Dominic's Fine Cigars, the law firm of Payne & Con, Aging Issues Management, and their partners, Aging Issues Radio. And our guests for the day, and let's go over that list now. Vince Russo joins us now, then John Bailey. Jake is back today. We have some sports to talk about. Andy Spano joins us at 8:35. The other day, he told us he had a tough decision to make. He made it. We'll ask him why. And he was one of the two people that was going to decide whether or not we'd have a presidential primary. And a little later on, we'll talk with our friends from Choice. Now, I got some suggestions from people the other day, and what with the way we run the program, by Monday, we'll be setting aside specific times for callers. So that will be useful to us, especially now that we have a good and solid working phone system. Without further ado, let's say good morning to Vince Russo and ask him how he feels about my 3 bugaboos. Good morning, Vince.
Hey, Bob. Good morning.
Did you hear my monologue and my 3 things that I think need to be really fixed when we do get back to normal? If not, I should.
Yeah, I did.
What do you think?
Yeah, I did.
What's your take? And why do why do schools have to feed kids?
Because they don't have food.
Why?
I mean, again, there's any number of reasons that parents,
give me the good ones. Give me the good excuses. Give me my son is really home with the flu. An analogy to that.
The main reason is people don't have money. I mean, they can't afford it.
Okay, so why don't we give the parents more? Why don't we give the parents more food stamps if they really can't afford to feed them? Because that's criminal, and we should feed them that. Why aren't we doing that? In other words, they call that enabling in psychology and psychiatry. If we give them money, then we're fine, no?
Well, not necessarily. Because
see, I'm being a bum here. I'm being a creep because I'm driving you to a certain spot. It's unfair, but it's the mood I'm in. Well, why can't we just give them more money?
Well, because we can't be assured that that will translate into the kids getting food.
Why not?
There's so many, because there's so many issues going on with poverty, other than people not having money. There's poverty, there's drug addiction, there's dysfunctional families, there's all sorts of social issues, and the best way to ensure that the kid is going to eat is to put food in their mouth.
Well, I do agree with that. With again, I'm playing an intellectual game here, folks. I'm not prescribing that children die, but see, here's the point: how do we ever then? What we're essentially doing is papering over the problem, and their parents will continue to be irresponsible. Why is there no consequence for someone that doesn't feed their kid? If you punch your kid in the mouth and you don't feed him, what's the difference?
Well, I think the problem goes down to the root causes of why these people are in situations they're in. Is lack of education, lack of jobs, all sorts of social issues that people don't want to spend any money to address. So,
it's just,
if people are saying, well, it's terrible that there's all this drug addiction. Okay, do you want to spend money to have rehabilitation and counseling and all of these things that go along with treating drug addiction? People go, I'm not spending my money for that. So, it's a Band-Aid maybe to provide food for kids in school, but it gets them to eat. The much larger issue is why it's happening, and all of the reasons that need to be addressed.
yes.
is huge. So I think that you've got kids in a central place, where you can monitor whether they've eaten or not, and it just makes sense to do it that way.
Well,
you can't go around to everybody's house and say, have you eaten breakfast today? Kid says, yeah, I've eaten breakfast. Okay, see you. Go to the next house. It'd be impossible to do something like that. So the best place is the kids are in school and they get fed.
Now, again, I'm using in some ways I'm using was an intellectual foil here. So, because I'm trying to air the problem. So bear with me and forgive me. Okay, I get it. But did you realize until this crisis that the problem was as big as it was? And what do you think of the idea that August people of means, and when I don't mean means financially, but powerful, important people were willing to risk people's lives in order to keep the schools open so kids could eat? I'm
Well,
flabbergasted at
you
that.
know, yeah, you have two difficult choices. So it's really a hard thing to say. Yeah, I don't know how to address that, because on the one hand, you put people at risk, and on the other hand, the kids don't eat.
Well, yeah, see, with your
Uh,
minuscule brain, I wasn't expecting you to solve it, but just as a means of conversation, which I appreciate, I'm just trying to expose the problem because for a person that does the news, I knew we had to do that. And I also knew that there are reasons why they finally had to feed everybody, because the immigrant population wasn't willing to fill out the paperwork to get their kids to have free food. And I saw it first in Yonkers. Oh, I give everybody free food so we don't have to have them not fill out the request and their kids will starve. We've got several different philosophies ramming one another right in the head. I don't know. It just seems so enabling not to hold parents more accountable, but I guess it's just not a practical thing to do. All right, what did you think of the story about 60 dead bodies in a truck in an unlicensed funeral home?
yeah, it's terrible. I mean, the imagery is just disgusting. There are unlicensed businesses all over the place. That you'd be surprised how many businesses aren't operating with licenses and such like that. And again, it comes down to money. It comes down to how many inspectors can you hire, how many people who issue licenses and things like that can you hire. Here in our little municipality, we our health department is a consortium with 5 other towns, and it's run by one of the larger towns that we border. And they have health inspectors who go around and inspect food establishments and things like that. They can only go around at most once a year
Yeah.
to
Although, a
all of
lot
these
of these
places.
businesses can't they pay for themselves? One of our dirty little secrets here in Westchester, particularly the cities, is there are building inspectors, okay? But everybody knows, and I got to be very careful. When I first came here, I knew someone, and I'm not being totally honest, I need to be obtuse here. I knew someone who was living in a very nice apartment that was illegal. And I also knew many people who were living in apartments that were illegal. Now, it seems to me that if you funded that properly and the fines to the landlords were appropriate, it would pay for itself. You wouldn't have to raise more money. So there also is the political will that people don't want to get into the fact that we have more illegal apartments I'm sure here in New Rochelle and in Yonkers and in other cities here than you could shake a stick at. And it would pay for themselves if they hired people.
Well, what would they do then? Would they go knock on every single door and say, "I need to come in and inspect your building"?
Yes.
And
Yes, and it would pay for itself. And particularly, there are certain types of buildings and neighborhoods where it's known to be the case. Now, I'm not being a louse. I'm simply saying it's probably better for society that they don't, because otherwise people would have no place to live and an apartment would be $8 billion. But what I'm saying is we have a system that we don't use that everybody's looking the other way on. See, I just think this crisis is going to uncover a lot of that.
well, perhaps, but again, you get into a lot of legal and social issues. I mean, someone comes to my house and they say, I want to come in and inspect your house, and I say, yeah, let me see your warrant. You ain't coming in here and inspecting.
If you
We don't have a society like that.
Well, what if am I not allowed to inspect your building? Am I not allowed to inspect your building for lead pipes? Am I not allowed to inspect your building for lead paint? Am I not allowed
Um,
to inspect your building for proper construction? See, I don't know enough about that, but it seems to me that we should be able to do that.
well, there are circumstances where that is permissible, but you can't just say, we're going to have people walking down the block, going into everybody's house and looking around. That ain't going to fly.
We let the guy with the meter do it. All right. Well, I'm going to move on to the other thing in the interest of time. We'll leave that one out there. Um, Nursing homes. This has been a tragic story in this crisis, in that even some of the best nursing homes have been found wanting, and yet so millions and millions, because of the baby boomers coming of age now, if you will. There are more better blues, more better nursing homes than ever, but even they didn't manage this crisis very well. And then there's the darker side of it. Something where it took a good Republican to sit my ass down and straighten me out about a lot of the grants that go to communities. They open a nursing home and they just throw people in there the way the teachers union looks at students, just a means to make money. And what do you think will evolve with that?
Well, I don't know. On the one hand, it's should be no surprise that there's been devastation in nursing homes. You've got a large group of people who are at risk because of age and infirmity, and a pandemic is flowing through the country. So it stands to reason that they're going to be the hardest hit, regardless of what steps the nursing homes have taken. So I don't think that's a surprise. It's unfortunate, but it's
Well,
logical.
but they could have
Uh,
communicated with families better. And even one of the things that we've learned is, for example, they don't test you, but if they do, or if they suspect you have it, they put you in a room with people who already have it, even though you haven't been tested. So your
well,
chances of getting it just got worse. And then the governor says, well, if someone gets tested, you got to put them back in the nursing home. But that presupposes the nursing home has the means to quarantine. It's
that's right. Those protocols, I mean, are tough, especially in this particular case. I mean, this is unprecedented. What we're going through now. I mean, this really, except for 1917, there's really been no other time in history that this has happened. And I think people are kind of feeling their way around this thing. Certainly the government is. You hear all these ridiculous conflicting things coming out of the government. It's a tough situation. Look, and the other question is that nursing homes are for-profit organizations. I mean, they're going to try and maximize their profits, and I'm not excusing what a lot of them do, but that's the way it is. The better ones are very, very expensive, so people who've got money get good care as usual, and the people who don't have money don't. The alternative is to have government-run facilities. But we know how well government runs things, and so it's always a situation. This whole pandemic thing. When people say, "Oh, people should be prepared to do this and that," if you have if you run an airport and it's in an area that gets maybe an inch of snow a year, you don't have a fleet of snowplows.
No, you don't.
Because on the odd chance that there's going to be a blizzard, which could happen.
Yeah, I've been saying that for 2 months.
You don't invest in that. I mean, you just don't. And that's what the situation that we're in now. No one A, could have foresaw it, and B, there's really no way to prepare for it in a logical way.
Well, there are certain contingency plans that you can put into place. Listen, we've got to go, but I appreciate you reacting to my craziness. Thank you, Vince. We'll talk to you later. All righty. What did I do? I hit the wrong button. Oh, there he is. He's on. All righty. Coming up next, and we're going to go straight to him because we haven't talked to him in a while, and he is our man in White Plains. He is, of course, John Bailey, the managing editor and publisher of WhitePlainsCitizen.net. He's also the host of 2 TV shows here on local cable. Please welcome John Bailey. John, good morning, sir.
Good morning from White Plains, New York, USA.
You're in a good mood today. It's good to hear. I don't know. Oh. Are you still sequestered in your home with the missus?
Yes, of course. Where else would I be?
Well, I don't know.
Except
out and about.
Occasionally in a supermarket.
Occasionally in the supermarket.
Standing in line.
Have you gained any weight during this crisis?
Actually, no, I've lost.
Actually, so have I. That's interesting. My eating habits are all weird. All right.
Yes.
All right. Let's get to cases. I don't know if you heard my monologue today, but I wanted to just talk a little bit about that. So we have plenty of time, and then I want to find out what's going on in White Plains. I have identified in my own tiny brain 3 things that this crisis may help us improve. And of course, as I presented them, it sounded negative, but the intent is that we can do something more about it. The discovery that our schools do a better job of feeding our kids than educating them, which is to say that they were even willing to risk lives to leave them open so people could eat. And it says it's a terrible thing about our society that we need to look at. 1. 2, nursing homes were ill prepared, even the best of them, to some degree, to deal with the crisis, particularly one dealing with families. That's number 2. And number 3, good grief, our funeral parlor, if you will, the way we deal with the dead, we weren't prepared for it either. And that doesn't seem to be that difficult of an issue, at least in terms of refrigeration. What's your reaction to those 3 things? Any of them surprise you? Any of them do you think we have to put extra focus on down the road?
Well, I mean, the situation is the main reason it appears to be trying to get schools open again is so people can go, both working members of a family, the husband and wife, can both go back to their jobs without having to worry about childcare. That seems to me to be, a interesting commentary that the businesses do not give daycare for the younger than 5-year-olds, period. And many don't, okay? And that is, I think, an issue that really has to be addressed because if if you have another one of these, and I have a feeling that things are not going to work out for a fast reopening. I just have that feeling. And so that is an issue that has to be addressed by businesses.
I'm glad you
how do we
mentioned it.
keep? Yeah,
I'm glad you mentioned
because
that
that's what
because
schools
I
said.
neglected to say that, and it was unfair of me to neglect to say that because they do have that issue too of knowing that when they send these kids home, the parents will not be able to work. Although now that's academic because no one can work, or to some degree. But what about the fact that we have to feed so many children in our schools?
Well, it was announced by the governor that we have like a 200% increase in hunger in Westchester. People needing food.
It's ridiculous.
200%.
Richest country on
And
earth.
that is not news because we have heard this from food organizations in Westchester last year, and this is something that is most disturbing.
It is most disturbing. What about the nursing homes? Are you
The
surprised?
nursing homes, no, the nursing homes are for-profit operations, and when you're for profit, it is in your best interest to keep a person with you instead of moving them to another facility because you're out one of your meal tickets. That's very callous of me to say, but that is what has happened here. They didn't want to let these persons that contracted coronavirus go to a hospital because they would lose a big chunk.
But the governor even demanded that the nursing homes that didn't want to take them back would have to, which shocked the living daylights out of me.
Yes, but if they had a person who had coronavirus and couldn't take care of them because of staff or whatever, they could just call the health department, and the health department would arrange a hospitalization slot for the individual that was too ill with coronavirus for them to handle. It was right there.
Okay. My guest is John Bailey, White Plains Citizen.net reporter. Third item,
yes.
And I keep flipping back and forth among all of these funeral homes. I'm sure you saw that story, and that we've heard others similar to it. 60 bodies in a trailer truck decomposing. I'm just surprised, because I had that business in my family.
I'm surprised there aren't hundreds more. I'm surprised there aren't hundreds.
There probably are, but we've had wars in this country. We've had famines. We've had all kinds of things, and we have the ability. Yeah. We could refrigerate right now. I could call up a company that could refrigerate your garage. How did this happen?
Well, nobody expected people dying at the rate of 700 a day.
Yeah, but it became predictable once you put it on the chart. It was predictable where we were heading. Look, I'm not so much looking for blame as I am. These are weaknesses in the system that uncovered, and I'm just putting them out there for people to think about because they're going to be needed to be fixed, particularly the nursing home one. The school one is more a product of our failed economics in this country. Not that we don't have a good economy when you look at the GDP, or at least before this happened, but the split in the rich getting richer, the poor getting poorer is happening right in front of our eyes, I'm afraid. And as well, the left and the right haven't done a good job of fixing it. Neither side.
And the unequal pay of women compared to men in the same jobs.
Yeah, but that's slowly getting better.
Because if you had equal pay, you could pay for daycare.
Yeah, but that's one of the issues I think we finally addressed, and not addressed that it's fixed, but the fact that we have to feed our kids in school is indicative of something far greater, at least in my own mind. All righty, what's going on in White Plains, Mr. White Plains Citizen.net reporter?
Well, White Plains has a intriguing situation as far as our people that have coronavirus. The cumulative number of people who have tested positive in White Plains since testing began is 1,295 as of yesterday, and but what and that has sort of grown steadily, despite the fact that it is not a total number. And the mayor sent out a letter to everybody and a message thanking everybody for really observing social distancing and not frequenting the downtowns. And that's a factor in limiting it, but still it's spreading. And it's gone. When we first saw it, was found in the 100, 200s about 3 weeks ago. Now it's up to 1,300. So you can't ignore the fact that it is spreading.
Well, yeah, well, it has. But I think
mean,
it's going to
just
peak.
saying the figure is low in comparative doesn't mean that you're out of the woods.
No,
That's my point.
No, it does not. What else is happening in White Plains?
Well, it's a very quiet town. Not much is happening. However, I would want to point out that as soon as beautiful weather arrives, you are going to have this pent-up energy to be outside and mingling. And nowhere was that more demonstrated than at Playland last Saturday, which was where the parking lot was packed with cars. People were walking on the boardwalk, and the city park next to Playland, which is owned by the city of Rye, that was not packed with people. It had less people, but the point was, I'd say about maybe a third were wearing masks, and there was no one. The Playland parking lot was not blocked off with police sawhorses to prevent parking in there, and it was just an open area. And my feeling is that when you get beautiful weather, this is going to increase.
Well, you've got
and
it coming
we're
Saturday.
very lucky that April has been so wet.
Well, John, we've got, I can tell you this, I do the weather here every 15 minutes, and I'm going to read Saturday's forecast to you. Morning clouds giving way to sunshine Saturday, the temperature 66, which usually means I always add about 3 from my official forecast. If the sun stays out, it gets near 70 Saturday. And so we shall see. Yeah. Same thing Sunday. Mixed sun and clouds, 70 degrees.
Well, the county has to figure out some sort of policy here, because people are going to mingle. And when the figures came out yesterday from Westchester County, it was most unusual because they pointed out that let's see, there were total number tested in Westchester was 91,000. The number of people who have tested positive in the county is 28,626. So that's almost a third.
Mm-hmm.
A third. That is far higher than the first 2 weeks of this antibody testing that New York State is doing. Now that really concerns me. Wouldn't it you? Because you've got a third of the people that are tested positive in the county. You've got a real feeling on the part of the administration that Mr. Latimer says he has to open up some places and get things somewhat back to normal and all that. But this is a real conflict, because upstate in Albany, just 2 days ago, the governor said that he would not open beaches. He would not open parks with any reopening. So this is going to be a real conflict issue here, because as you know, when it gets to be 90 degrees in July, people will want to go to the beach.
Well,
I don't know how that is going to work out.
We're going to be hamstrung.
Or pools. Pools is another thing that's going to be closed.
Well, yeah, but we're going to be
according to the governor.
We're going to be hamstrung. But when I say we as a society are going to be hamstrung by the rhetoric of our leaders, because what once was a good policy at some point may turn out not to be a good policy. You know, the worm's going to turn. For example, as these things happen, the president's position that we've got to reopen the economy is going to become the favored one. And
Of course it
as
is.
the numbers of people die less, but they've so wedded to the idea that we can't, and I'm not saying they're wrong, I don't know the truth anymore, but they're saying we can't let anybody die, even one person. That's not going to fly anymore. And so they're going to be stuck to their old rhetoric because they're going to be, so in other words, you'd let your grandmother die. Well, yeah. No one's going to say that. So
Well, that's the text. That's the who was it? The lieutenant governor in Texas said that.
oh yeah, but at the point in time when he said it, see, there's a point in time where the answer to that question has to be a very muted, painful yeah. And you know, and that's why the governors and the president at some point, politics aside, are going to have to arrive at a sweet spot and support one another. Now, I don't expect it to happen, but we need to do that because at some point, I mean, I'm one of those people, and so are you. I'm 70 years old, and theoretically, I'm more likely to croak when society reopens than your average bear. But also, I'm going to have to put on my big boy pants, as that guy said, and say, well, I just have to be very careful, but life needs to go on. Now, I shouldn't have taken, and I'm not taking, and I stopped taking the crazy risks that I was taking, going back and forth, covering stories, doing all the commuting I was commuting. I got a serious sinus infection. Everybody thought I had blah, 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 blah. It was my own fault. But now I'm using my head. But at some point in time, I'm going to have to get back out in the game, as we all are. And there's going to be some risk.
Right. Well, as the governor pointed out yesterday in his daily talk, the German reopening is really making a worrisome problem for reopening because they reopened 10 days ago and already they are just a little bit under the breakout stage in new infections.
Well, and we're seeing now our friends over in Sweden tried the Darwinian approach to let it all hang out, and now their numbers of cases are going up. At what point will it be acceptable?
The triage policy.
Yes. So what else is going on in White Plains? Tell us more White Plains news.
Well,
we love White Plains news.
Yes, there is not much news. There's not any news that's really important except for the tremendous break we're getting on county taxes by not having to pay penalties if we get the payment for the county tax in by the 15th of July. However, people should realize that you have to pay it early so it gets recorded as being paid. Don't leave it to the last minute, because you will be marked delinquent if it is an in on the 15th, because and you don't want that, because then you become technically in default on your mortgage. Technically.
Yeah. Well, I think what all of the
in other words, it's an extension for people who have a real problem.
Well, yes, and now, but also what the banks are doing is they're giving you choices. A lot of people are worried that when this thing is over, they're going to have to pay 3 months mortgage, but banks will be contacting people. I know mine has contacted me if I wanted a forbearance and said, hey, look, we need to know, do you want us to tack it on at the end, which is exactly what I would do, as opposed to, if I can't pay it now, I'm not going to be able to pay it in 3 months. Plus, nothing is coming in. I mean, John, everyone in a small business, and I'm sure you have the same problem. All of us applied for that emergency money 6 weeks ago. I don't know of anyone in all of Westchester who even got no. We didn't get anything. It went into some black hole. So the analogy I keep using is we're all going to be dead with the magic pill to save us is going to be in our hand, and we will not have swallowed it. It'll be too late. So,
the intriguing thing is that when are the stimulus checks going to arrive?
I finally
the $1,200 or so.
Finally, I sent in a request to them saying, where's my stimulus check? And then they said, oh, gee, well, if you get a check, why don't you just tell us your bank account? So why didn't they tell me
Mm.
that a while back? I would have done that.
Hmm.
So I don't know. It's
Well, that's because you weren't told.
I
Now, what happened? What happened was with the unemployment checks was that they had a double application, and if you didn't fill out something, they were supposed to be cold or something, and this overwhelmed the Department of Labor in New York State. Now they've straightened that pretty fast, but this was like another silly bureaucratic error to sort of delay payments, I think. But
well, with all
a
these things,
bureaucratic error by the federal government.
the PPE program, the unemployment program, the emergency funding program, and other grants, each one of them requires an entire afternoon. You need to take 4 hours out of your day
Yeah,
just to hold on the
exactly.
phone. Hold on the phone. I mean, I spend more time holding on the phone. So what I do is I just put my phone on mute and I put it on speaker and I do something else and wait. And what else is going on in White
Yeah,
Plains? How's the mayor doing? Has he
well,
come
as
out from
I
his borough lately?
well, he now is doing his updates Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, where he tells people what the situation is in White Plains and in the county. But I mean, numbers are given, but people don't really know what they mean. Like when I noticed that a third of the county has tested positive in the figures that were put out yesterday, that's interesting to me because it's far higher than is indicated by the antibodies testing, which showed Westchester at 15% of people with antibodies carrying antibodies around, which means they have had the virus, and we don't really know whether if you have antibodies in you, whether you're still contagious.
Well, there is
a
little bit of embedded good news in that if enough people have had it and have antibodies, and indeed those antibodies prevent a recurrence, you're getting close to herd immunity then. 60% is the threshold for herd immunity, which is to say that numerically the numbers of the chances of you contracting the virus are much lower. So herd immunity is a good thing. I keep waiting for the vaccine whackers, the vaccine wackos, which is the left's attempt to ignore science. They're going to be out there enforcing.
This is a moral dilemma. That's a moral dilemma because the anti-vaccine people say you should not take vaccines at all.
Good, and they and their children should have to do that from a jail cell. They should get to proclaim that from a jail cell. Because you have to have some governing principles that are good for society. The same thing if you go out into the street and you spray some sort of a deadly virus, for example, you should go to jail. I'm a little tired of the vaxxers. They've been disproved and disproved and disproved again. They're the same people that think crystals are going to get them well, that go to aromatherapy and think God's going to come down and give them a bushel of flowers.
Your rights should not impose on other person's health.
No. Well,
this
look at what
is
happened.
The problem.
I don't. I have no
measles.
Yeah, I have
measles in Rockland County.
I don't have any patience for the mayor of New York City. He is the anti-Trump. He's the liberal version of gone too far. And but yeah,
well,
I totally.
Blasio keeps saying silly things. Like the allowing the homeless to sleep on the subways, which the governor has said they have to clean every night.
No, but what I was referring to is...
And he's right about that.
He was totally right in criticizing the Hasidim community for having 2,500 people go out to that wake. Religion is another thing. Look, I am not anti-religion, although I sometimes sound like it. It's just that religion and your sexuality in terms of what you do at home... they're your private business. I don't care, but they should not be allowed to interrupt the common good. And so and this is one of the few times I have to say that the mayor is 100% right. And the same thing with the vaccinations. You don't want to vaccinate your kid? Guess what? Can't leave the house. We will quarantine your ass. So,
Well,
yeah, but then again, we know that there's crystals. Plus, there's these new substances that are coming out. You can take the testicles off of bees, and it will make you fly. Good grief. Oh no! Well, by the way, it's
well,
one of my few misogynistic traits. Why more women believe in that stuff than men? I need to get my arms around one day. That's not misogynistic, but it will be called that because it's just a distinction. And look, I can go the other way. Why men think it's cool, and we do, to have a beer and yell at the screen is something that we do too much. So, but it's just I find that
yeah.
interesting. Oh,
But I mean, my point is the about reopening is the Germany is a cautionary tale because they did that, and 10 days later they're pushing up against the outbreak again, and I look forward to Governor Cuomo inviting Angela Merkel onto one of his daily briefings because that would be instructive. People, as his governor says, you're not facts are facts, and if you ignore them at your peril.
you absolutely
And
do. Okay, I've got my next
yeah,
guest on the line, John, so I got to throw you out of here. John Bailey, please read citizen.net. Coming up, Jake is calling in. We got to talk some sports and other things with him. Right now it is 8:01. Welcome to the 8 o'clock hour of Mornings with Bob Marrone. I am Bob Marrone. You're listening to Radio Westchester, your radio station at the train station. And like every other good citizen, we are not in the studio right now. We're seeing guests, and even Jake and I are working from remote locations. We don't even let engineers in unless it's to help us relocate the studio, which we've done now a couple of times. It is 8:01, and again, the Mornings with Bob Marrone. I am he. It is Thursday, April 30th, 2020. The day ends today. The month ends today. We're third through the year, and as John Bailey just said, we are third through people in Westchester having contracted the virus. So maybe we're well on our way to herd immunity. Who knows? Anyway, it's 49 degrees and overcast. Going to get up to 61. And the weather's brought to you exclusively by United Hebrew of New Rochelle, one of America's best rehabilitation and senior care campuses. And it's right here in New Rochelle. Visit uhgc.org. Breezy with showers today, getting up to the low 60s, but we will have showers, and those showers will continue into the evening. Periods of rain, drizzle, and fog. The temperature will be 54. The wind out of the southeast, 10 to 20 miles per hour. Friday, cloudy, more rain, the high 64, getting down to 52 at night. But alas, Saturday morning. Some clouds to open the day. They'll be coming out of the rain. But we'll have more sun. The high will be 66, maybe even kiss 60 degrees. And on into Sunday, 70 rather. Mixture of sun and clouds, late day showers, but avoid the late day. The high's going to be 70. Overnight low 51. The spring may finally have sprung. And as we get into the 8 o'clock hour, we thank Aging Issues Management, Aging Issues Radio, the law firm of Payne & Con, Dominic's Fine Cigars, pluginvirtualreality.com, and of course, Beachmont Tavern. They open a couple of hours from now. They open at 11:30, but they'll be with us until 1 o'clock tonight, so you want to call up and order a meal. Jake does. We'll ask him about that in a moment. For me, it's the wonderful burger with the sauteed onions. I like it well done. Keep the lettuce, keep the tomato, hold the mayo. Don't want any of that, just some ketchup, a salad on the side. And these days, because everybody's eating comfort food, give me a giant dose of French fries. Nice and with the steak fries. They're even better. Love those. But they got everything. Chicken wings, pasta. Call them up. Look at their menu. That's the Beachmont Tavern right across the street from Iona College. Used to be the Levee. Remember brought my Chevy to the Levee? That was the original Levee. As you know, Don McLean grew up here in New Rochelle. So the phone number to call is 636-9533, 636-9533. Then you go and pick it up. It's right there at the front door. They have a couple of tables set up. Your bag will be waiting. It'll be a little steamy. You'll pick it up. You'll go home. You'll hide in the corner. You'll pop that can of beer you got with it, or whatever it is, your soda, your iced tea, fresh water, and go to hell with yourself. That's what we want you to do. Try and get by this. All righty. In terms of the coronavirus, we've gone through 1,000 deaths here in New Rochelle, but again, we're starting to see a downward trend in the city and in Westchester. Some things are beginning to open up. Some parks, particularly in Rockland, will open up over the weekend. New Jersey's opening its parks over the weekend. But again, do practice social distancing. 1 million people in the United States, and there's probably many more, but they've tested positive for the virus, and we've gotten over 60,000 deaths. That's what's going on. But again, we see a turn. The president is not going to extend the federal stay-at-home order, but that's academic at this point because the governors will be ruling the roost, and each of them, I just dropped my weather traffic here, copy. Each of them has a different program. All right, he's on the phone. He does sports for us. He does wagering. He does all kinds of stuff for us, production. But please welcome Mr. Jake Schaefer. Good morning, Jake. How are you?
Good morning, Bob. How are you in your remote location? How remote are you this morning?
Oh, I am so remote. I am behind the moon. I'm on the ninth moon. I think it's Ios in Jupiter. And that's where I'm broadcasting from. But now, as for you, we know where you are holed up in Mamaroneck or Larchmont. I always get the two confused. Or do those your towns, does one reside within the other? In other words, is Larchmont part of Mamaroneck or are they totally separate?
We're one train stop apart, so a little due east is I'm in Larchmont. Marrone is right down the road.
Yeah, I've always been a little bit. Well, that's one of the things about Westchester I find amazing. My favorite thing are the ryes. We got Rye Brook, Rye Bread, Rye Beach, Rye this, Rye that. Very expensive.
Rye Neck.
Yeah, a very expensive way to run an airline. Something very interesting. I was finishing applying, and again, you may have heard me talking about it earlier. Each application that you put together, and we have for the radio station, you literally need to take out a half day. You're going to be on hold. Then you have to fill out onerous forms. You know, one of the questions, and two of the four things I applied for, they asked me whether or not I do online gambling. I thought you'd find that interesting.
How did you respond?
No, I've never done it. Now, if I were you, I would have gone
I literally was doing it 2 hours ago.
Now,
It was a long night, Bob.
What can you bet on now? I mean, what can you bet on?
Just poker.
Oh,
but they're finding all different things to bet on.
Such as
how long we're going to be in lockdown, when schools will be back. The casinos have, when baseball's coming back, not the actual games, but when the actual first game will be played. Now so they're taking advantage of everything.
Tell us some of the odds. Let's take that. One baseball is going to open. What kind of odds? What are the favorites? Do you know?
I think July is the favorite. Near the end of July.
Which is
going to be fascinating. I mean, it's going to be Thanksgiving, and you're going to have to decide between watching the football game, the Thanksgiving football game, or the World Series. And that sounds like a nice dilemma to have.
That is a nice problem to have. I'll be watching unless. See, I'm so interested in what's going on, and I have to confess this. I was not a Patriots fan, but I'm very interested when people just assert their individuality. I'm very interested to see Tom Brady do well. And so I'd watch.
You'll be rooting for him?
Yes, I will. Only because I have this deep, old-fashioned conservative. I still like the individual guy that gets out and does something on his own and stands up against the crowd. So I hope that he does well. And I just find it interesting to see if he makes the difference or if the Darth Vader coach was really the difference up in Boston. And
the evil genius.
Yeah, the evil genius. But having said that, I'd probably watch the World Series because I love to watch that whole pitcher's duel thing. I don't have a lot of respect.
Go
ahead. I'm sorry.
I would just DVR one. I would flip a coin, watch one, DVR the other, and just sit back and enjoy,
Of course, for
the
me, it depends.
new sports for the whole night.
What I'm also concerned about right now are what's going to happen with what were the traditional winter spring sports. I mean, we're already now getting into NHL playoff territory now that April is
Yeah,
upon us.
Did you see the NHL teams could reopen in May? 2014 playoff format reportedly favored. Did you hear about this?
Yes, I did. And how is that being how oh my, look at this. Eagles draft Jordan Love. What about that? What are the odds of that happening? Can you bet on that?
On the NHL returning?
Yeah. Did you see what are the
Sure.
odds
I
of that?
mean, you could. I was just looking. I just saw this story today. I would love it if hockey came back soon. That would give us something to do and talk about, eh?
Yeah, that would be. Hey,
I would study the NHL more than my poker.
Well, that's going to be very interesting, and I can help you win money, even though I was losing towards the end in my little fight with that young man and that young college guy. He should be free now, but I bet he's sleeping all day. Folks, I'm referring to the fact that all winter long, Jake had been waging on football, or at least making picks. And then we even had his picks be compared to a bizarre wheel we had at the station, and which
Bizarre.
pick games. We used to call them like bazaars. We ever now
Yeah.
when you grew up under the hinterland, didn't they have bazaars there? Or did you call them fairs and have water and pop?
We called them fairs with a nice glass of pop.
Oh, nice pop. No, it's not pop. It's pop. That's my family in Buffalo says pop. And then they yell at me for saying
Well,
coffee.
I have a strong inclination that you are broadcasting from up there right
Oh,
at this very
pop,
second.
pop. All right, let's move. Let's move into then. So what is right now? What are the locks? What are the locks that you can gamble on? Tell me what the locks are. Like if I were to go and call them up right now and make a bet and make a fraud out of my money applications, what could I win easily? Do you think? What's out there? What's got the low?
Well, you want to bet on Trump being reelected?
What's that?
That he might. I think Biden is a pretty. It would take a lot of money to. You'd have to bet a lot of money on Biden to make money. I think Biden is a
right now he's the
very
favorite.
serious favorite.
Well, that's interesting
Very
because
serious favorite.
something I have said for years, and I want your learned response. Having grown up in a gambling neighborhood, the cool thing about honest to goodness gangsters who hire good, honest to goodness odds makers, they can give two spits about politics. Two spits.
Yep.
They don't care. And they just take the hard facts and all the people that owe them money who play the sport. They have a lot of information we don't know about. So what I'm saying is, folks, I pay real careful attention to gambling handicappers because they have ice in their veins. They could love a player, but they'd kill his mother if it meant winning the game. So you're saying right now that the bookmakers are favoring Biden greatly. Yes?
Oh, very, very much. But it's an interest. His VP pick. I think Harris. I believe she is around 4-1. That sounds like a nice idea to me. Klobuchar is, I think, 2 or 3-1. I think she's the favorite in the House right now.
What about
Warren?
What about the governor of
a little
Detroit?
bit.
The governor of Detroit's not in that race. I'm trying to figure. Not Detroit. Excuse me, Michigan.
They're all in. I don't have the. I don't have it right now, but I'm sure.
The lock
That's
is
lock?
Biden. The lock is Biden. Okay, but you're right. I probably have to weigh $1,000 to win 10, is what you're telling me, though.
Exactly. Yeah.
All right. Any news? Any trades in the football front? We don't see any reports. I go on my different websites. I don't see anything. I mean, it's like a waste of time to look up anything in sports.
No, but
Nothing?
Bob, your mailbox is still overflowing. I can't believe it. These people, they
I,
just can't stop
I,
writing
I
you.
was going to get to that
Got some
next.
letters for you.
Can we do that now?
Yeah,
I'm ready.
yeah, of
It is
course.
8:14. We're talking with Jade Schaefer, one of the actually the truest and bluest member of our team. And he is working from home, producing segments. He is our sports guy, and we're going to do a lot tomorrow, by the way, with you and Steve Callis. I want to talk in a little more detail about the football draft. But let's get to those letters now. It's time for letters to Bob. Go ahead.
Listener letters. Letter number 1. Please repeat.
Letter number 1.
Bobby baby, love the show. Just opened a new club in New Rochelle. Would you consider doing a live broadcast here this weekend? Love, Tiffany.
Okay, Tiffany. No picture with that. Tiffany, no. Only because I would do a live broadcast, but not until the those places are open and we're allowed to do it. But yes, we do live broadcasts. We do remotes, and we would come out to your shop. So as soon as
That wouldn't be safe, Tiffany.
no, exactly. But I do want them to know that yes, we do that, and we MC events. Next letter, letter number 2.
Bob, since this virus hit, I haven't wore a pair of pants with buttons. Do you still wake up, shower, and dress properly for the airwaves?
No.
Agnes in Santa Fe, New Mexico.
No, Agnes. Now, I do put on jeans and a t-shirt or a sweatshirt, but of course not. Plus, one of the things that in morning radio that you do, you always shower the night before because you just, in the morning, I'm just one. That's an interesting aside for another day, but we are always, the minute I wake up, it's on, the clock's ticking. And that's why I don't want, when I die, I don't want any clocks at my wake because the clocks are ticking. I've got to get the news. I've got to break the mic at 6:35, or it used to be 6:05, and all I'm concerned about is the news and a cup of coffee. So I don't shower in the morning. I shower at night, but I don't care how I look.
Yeah.
I don't shave often.
Yeah, I don't think my wife actually just bought a pair of barber shears to give me a haircut, but I haven't put a pair of pants on with buttons in weeks.
Now, when you say
I
with
can't remember the
buttons,
last time.
what do you mean buttons? I mean, I used to have a pair of old khakis that had like a button zipper, but no, buttons.
No, I just mean I just wear sweatpants.
All right, yeah,
nonstop.
or sometimes shorts, but the weather's been too cold. It's been really ridiculous, and I am so sick of rain that it's depressing. But that for another day. And letter number 3.
Robert, do
Uh,
you hope you are abducted by an alien or a UFO? Chaz, Long Beach, New York.
Only if the alien is the 50-foot woman. Do you ever see that movie back in the day? No, I don't believe
No, but
in,
I've seen the movie poster.
No, I don't believe. In fact, we talked a little bit about that today. I do believe in UFOs, but they're obviously earthborn, and we and everyone else has these black ops, if you will, and a lot. We've been looking at drones for years, and now it just hit us that hey, not for nothing, someone built drones before we did. But I don't believe. I do believe that there's life in the universe. It's ridiculous to think that there's not, but I do not believe that anyone yet has the means to visit Earth, and I don't know that they ever will, simply because of distances and the laws of physics. Now that I got that out of the way. So I would like to be abducted by the 50-foot woman. It would be very interesting, but I don't think it's going to happen. How's that? Letter number 4.
What are we on?
4.
Mr. Marrone.
Yes.
Why the hell am I wasting this precious stamp on you? Gilbert, San Diego.
Gilbert, why you, well, you wasted a stamp. What did you say? I mean, what did you just send me an empty letter? Did you open an empty letter from our mailbag? Why are you wasting a
I
precious?
think Gilbert. I think Gilbert's going a little stir crazy.
Yeah, that's what it is. You're wasting a stamp because you listen to the show and you're up all night because if you're listening at 3 in the morning or 3:30 in the morning, and you're not the only one. I have a listener in Hawaii who's a regular listener, by the way, and I'm always trying to get my head around. He's probably listening in the middle of the night, and a very loyal listener. So go figure. I got some
I think
in the Netherlands as well. Go ahead. I'm sorry. What about letter 5? Why am I wasting a stamp?
well, I would just say if Gilbert's worried about spending the cash on a stamp, you should throw out your email.
Yeah,
Save a couple cents.
and if he's wasting a stamp, and he's worried about wasting it, what is it up to 50? I don't even know anymore. Then I just buy the. Give me the.
I think it's 55.
It's ridiculous.
I'm not sure though.
It's
I've been in the Larchmont Post. I live in Larchmont. The Larchmont Post Office got the corona, so I go to Marrone now to do all my mailings. But I just send packages. I do not know what the actual stamp is.
well, yesterday, I have limited technology here, but yesterday I did something I didn't think I'd ever do, Jake, which is I use my phone in tandem with a PC to, when you apply for these different grants that we need, you have to provide all kinds of records. So I would photo them with my phone. Then I would email them to myself, then download them to my computer, and then upload them to the application. I mean, it is a full-time job. And someone said that. I haven't even done unemployment yet. That's next. Because theoretically I am employed, but I think I'm unemployed if you follow the meaning. But so we'll see. It's going to be interesting. Any more letters in the mailbag? I like this. We don't do enough of these. I like these. What else you got?
I think I found one more. It's like Santa digging into the stocking.
Mm-hmm.
I think I found one stuck to the bottom for you there.
Okay.
Dear Bob, in these times of pandemic, would you consider offering a free online broadcasting college? I can't afford Connecticut School of Broadcasting anymore. Love, Jerome, New Rochelle.
You know what? That's interesting. I probably, in promoting the station, should have done some free stuff. I have, as you know, and this is on the serious end of things. We have a subsidiary we haven't opened yet because we've been struggling with the virus, and our goal was once we had the station up for a year to do this. But we own a trademark called the On Air Academy, and I was both a student there and taught at the Connecticut School of Broadcasting. They're really good at what they do, by the way. Although sometimes I question the people that they'll sign. You have a guy come in and and not be able to speak, but they'll let him broadcast. But again, if that person wants to work behind the scenes, it's beneficial. But they're very good at what they do. Anyway, I used to run the intern program at WVOX for almost a decade. So yes, I do teach it. Yes, I was going to do it. And in answer to that question, I probably should have given away some free classes to get it started. So when we do that, assuming we survive all of this, when we do that, I will definitely offer free classes. So if that person comes back to you, because what we do is a little different. There won't be 10 or 20 people. We'll only teach 3 at a time. And it'll be 3 days a week. And they will.
Well, our studio is very small.
No, but even,
I would hope it'd be 1 or 2.
No, actually, it'd still be 3 because you got people. Again, you're not in the seat, so you've got 2 people, 1 person manning the board and broadcasting. Think of our studio, Jake. 1 person learning engineering and broadcasting, and the other 2 working on news delivery and another on content. So it would work fine, but you couldn't do more than 3, but you could do 3, and the instructor's standing up.
Yeah.
So that's how we would.
Absolutely.
That's what I was thinking.
Absolutely.
So the answer is yes.
Letter, Jerome. Thank you, Jerome from New Rochelle.
Okay, and yeah, we would do that. It's by the way, I've got to send you something. I don't know if you've met my grandson yet, but my grandson has started podcasting, Jake. And he's been gone to
Out of
years. He's a podcast called the Tri-State It's on Anchor. Tri-State Power Play. He's been doing his first three. Now, again, he's got his finger on the scale because he's been coming on the air with me for 10 years since he was like 7 years old. But he's developed great chops, and I'm going to forward it to you. One of his podcasts sounds really good, and he's going to work with us when we start podhockey.com, which would have started had it not been for this virus. So.
Yeah.
I will send that to you and anybody else who wants to see it. I probably should post one of his things on Facebook because a lot of our listeners for years, Anthony and Tom and others have literally watched him grow up, listened to him grow up on the air, and enjoy that he abuses me. He's very talented.
How is Anthony doing?
Anthony's doing very well. Anthony did a piece. He's going to be doing a show with us too about New Rochelle. It's another show we're going to add. Our first additional show starts tomorrow, by the way, at 9:00. Politics in Your Health. But Anthony's going to be doing a show about growing up in New Rochelle. But he has been very involved and has provided me with a lot of information as well. Regarding what's going on in our nursing homes and some of the contradictions coming out of New York State. They got caught with their pants down on this one. They're going to have to rethink the whole thing. But otherwise, he's doing fine. And he even did a couple of podcasts of his own. Yeah.
Yeah, the nursing home, the street, I mean, I applied to volunteer there. It's right down the street. Many, many deaths there.
Yeah, it's
unfortunately.
And even in the better nursing homes, he told a story. He did a segment with us last week, pardon me, about his stepfather and how he had to push to get his father tested. And it kind of brought to light what now is general knowledge, but that in a lot of cases they test someone. And of course, then you want to sequester them. But in some cases, they made assumptions that people had it who maybe didn't. And then they would sequester them with the people that did, which is insane.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, to exacerbate that, the governor said that, well, if someone left the nursing home to go to the hospital or they needed to go to a nursing home because they had COVID, that the nursing home had to let them in, which is like pouring fuel into a fire. So it's one of the three weaknesses. I don't know if you heard my monologue today, but the three weaknesses so far there are many. One of the things, if you remember right after 2008, they stress test banks. Stress testing means in Wall Street, we used to do it all the time, where you'd have even more numbers of fake trades. You test the system. How much can you take? How much loans can you take? How much capital do you have? Well, this virus is stress testing the areas of society that are weakest. We're seeing people of lesser means dying at a greater rate. We're seeing nursing homes and kids that don't get food. Do you follow me?
Of course. And I will say that I wouldn't mind if Bill Belichick was the president right now. I'll tell you that. Guy's the leader and Guy would have a plan.
Although he would cheat.
That's fine. I don't care.
Although
I don't care about that right now.
That is, but this is the one time, this is where the president could have, and maybe he still will. This is one time when an authoritarian style is very, very useful and people look towards it. But you got to earn credibility. And so Belichick would have to do that. Now, before we go, what sports are you most looking forward to coming back to? And what will you start gambling on as soon as it's there?
I just heard that all the NBA players and their families might move into Disney World and they will play games there, remote or just quarantine there, which actually sounds, if they can get tested, it actually sounds like a pretty good idea, which would be fascinating, and that would be great. Hockey, it sounds like they're trying to come back. And I did not think hockey or professional basketball would come back. I do not see any way possible for college football to come back. I don't know how you could play a college football game without college kids in the crowds. That's the one thing that I do not think will come back.
Yeah.
I love the ideas that baseball is throwing out, doing a 3-division 10 teams in each division, by their location, and trying all the stuff that we've talked about, the no umpire, like the no strike zone umpire. They're going to come up with some new ideas, 100 games. I don't know. It sounds fun to me. And golf should be back, this weekend, I would think.
Do you know what I'm worried about,
socially
Jake?
distance.
I'm very worried about, and they're going to need it eventually anyway, and it'll come back. But I'm worried about high-level minor league sports because no one can afford to go to a major league game anymore, but you still can afford to go to AA or AAA baseball or the American Hockey or the Eastern Hockey League. And I don't want those leagues to die. And they're gate receipt leagues.
Some of them will. Some of the Baltimore Orioles are going to lose hundreds of $1,000s a week if they play and they can't have people buying their $25 beers, their hot dogs, their if the stands are empty, some teams are going to lose a lot of money.
Well, yes.
So they're going to have to come up with some kind of they're going to have to chop up the TV contracts.
But they're also, one of the things they're going to have to do, though, because of the nature, see, football has a built-in system of its whole taxi squad, or what do you call it, a practice squad, and then they play those imitation games all week as part of their practice. But baseball and hockey, if they don't go down at least one level, they're not going to have reserves because people get hurt.
They say they're going to add many. There's going to be a lot more players allowed on the rosters than regular.
How do you keep them current? How do they get real pitching is the question. They're going to have to run like football does. Their practices are going to have to incorporate game-like conditions. And the problem with doing that in baseball is they play every freaking day. So let's take
and they're going to have to.
Derek Jeter,
there's going to be a lot of games every single day.
Yeah. So no, but the thing is, your Derek Jeters of the world, who never miss a game, who play every day, they can't be playing the practice games. They just, it's not like football. They can't. I mean, you wear them out. So they'll have to have enough practice players to have mimic games almost every day. In fact, it would kind of be interesting. And I just thought of this. Maybe they could use the same ballpark and have like a B game every day. Like they do in spring training. I just thought of that.
Yeah, they're saying they're just gonna sequester the three divisions and certain areas of the world and play.
But hey,
pump out the 100 games.
But what about a B game every day? Wouldn't that be cool? You could televise that too. I bet people would watch it. I'd watch it.
Oh my God, people are so starved. The NFL draft was the fourth highest rated NFL or ESPN broadcast. That's including all of the Monday Night Football games. NFL draft was the fourth highest ESPN broadcast ever.
Or imagine, in following the Ranger game, you got to see the Rangers, or maybe you'll just call them the Blues, the Ranger Blues or the Ranger. What they do, what they could do? Let's see, I'm being just a child because I'm so in love with some of this stuff. But there was a team in New York, and this goes back to the mid-'60s, folks, so you have to be of a certain age. There was a hockey team that also played at the Garden out of the Eastern Hockey League called the New York Rovers. Now, the reason I'm mentioning them is I want you to think of the Ranger motif, their jersey, exactly as it is, and change the motif to fundamentally red. And instead of that diagonal Rangers, it said Rovers. They were the most, I can't find them anywhere. In fact, I called Cosby's to try and find one. And I used to go to the Rover games. They were beautiful. So imagine if in the afternoon you saw exactly the same uniforms, but instead of a blue motif, red, and it said Rovers. That would be interesting. See, I'd watch that. All the guys coming up.
Yeah, there's a lot of room for creativity. And I'm excited. I'm so happy to read about the baseball ideas, the hockey ideas, but someone's on a break right now and she wants to say hello to you. My wife is on a break.
Yes. Hi, baby.
Virtual teaching.
Hey, how's it going?
Christina wants to say hello.
Christina, hi. Welcome to the program. Hey, Christina. Bob
Marrone.
How do you admonish a kid that's doing badly? like let's say I wasn't paying attention, would you still yell at me and get me all excited?
My kids are pretty good, so I don't have any of those
I mean, but you don't have to say,
issues.
"Hey, Robert, listen up. What's wrong with you?" You wouldn't say that if I wasn't paying.
Listen up, bro.
Yeah, I like. Is that what you say? How many kids actually? Seriously, how many children are you doing in one? It's got to be hard work. Plus, you're living with that maniac. What's it like?
I know that's the challenging part. No, it's really not that. It's not bad from what I see because I have small groups.
Oh yes,
but
okay.
We're not doing live lessons with our larger classes. The ones that I co-teach, we're not doing live lessons at the moment. That's going to be a challenge, obviously, with 20 plus kids, and they're not all showing up. Even for my small groups, they don't all show up, or they'll say, I was sleeping. Sorry, I was sleeping, or
that's cute.
They just don't show up. It's not. We're not mandating it, but I set up the times. And like yesterday, I had one scheduled for one of my groups, and they're really good kids. All of them, they're really good kids, and not one showed up.
Now,
the last one I scheduled, no one showed up. Like, okay.
I'd show up. Now, let me ask you a question. Jake mentioned to us, and we, I didn't want it to go out on the air. He said that you weren't dressing well, that you were showing up in a nightgown and your hair all over your head. Can the kids see you?
He's lied. Did he really say that?
Of course he did. No, I lied. And I just lied in front of thousands of people. I just wanted to.
What a liar he is.
Oh no! What are you wearing though? And I don't mean that in the misogynistic. Hey, what are you wearing, baby? What are you wearing, baby? What do you wear to do your show? To do your presentation?
I just wear I don't get dressed up. I'll just wear a sweater or long sleeve T-shirt.
You put on makeup.
A nice top. And that,
Could you describe the top to us?
And I do my hair.
Oh, okay. What about makeup?
Most days.
Yeah, because
I do. I don't want to look unpresentable for the kids. Although I'm not. I'm not getting all decked out.
No, I know. You're a fine. You make a good. See, you can't even tell a woman she's good looking anymore without having the Me Too movement after you. I'll just say you make a fine presentation, and we'll leave it at that. Listen, I got to go to my next guest.
Exactly.
Thanks for joining in. And
all
also,
right, great to talk to you.
I appreciate.
Hope you're well.
I am. I appreciate the work you're doing for these kids. It's really important to keep doing it. And I should note that you're a special ed teacher as well, and they need the kind of instruction that someone with your patience can provide. So thank you. And tell Jake we'll talk with him tomorrow. Day. You too. Bye-bye. Christina Schaefer. We got the whole Schaefer clan. All right. Andy Spano's next. He's made more films, but also he made a tough decision yesterday. We're going to be talking with him in just a moment. You're listening to Radio Westchester. We'll be right there with you, County Executive. All right, we locked in our next guest. You could hear it again, me working alone. You hear some of the things that ordinarily you wouldn't. But that's live radio. We can change the music for you. It's 8:38. Welcome to Mornings with Bob Marrone. I am Bob Marrone. This is Radio Westchester, your radio station at the train station that is not at the radio station, train station right now because we are practicing social distancing. Of course, families are not very happy about it, but we're doing what we can to protect people. It's Thursday, April 30th, 2020. 49 degrees, getting up to 61 today. Breezy with showers likely. And tonight, periods of more rain, drizzle, and fog. The temperature getting down to 54. Friday, cloudy, more rain. Sorry, high 64, but here's where it gets cool. Saturday, Andy Spano. Although where he is, it's fine. Anyway, morning clouds giving way to sun. We're getting up near 70. The overnight low 50. Sunday, more nice weather, but late day showers. Not early day. We're going to get up to 70 degrees. The overnight low will be 51. And the weather's brought to you exclusively by United Hebrew of New Rochelle, voted one of America's best rehabilitation and senior care campuses. And it's right here in New Rochelle. Visit uhgc.org. And the bottom of the hour is brought to you by Aging Issues Management, the law firm of Pena & Con, Dominic's Fine Cigars, plug in virtual reality. And I love my next guest, and I'd like to forward him one of the burgers I get at the Beachmont. Used to be known as the Levy years ago. Don McLean sung about it. It's the Beachmont right across the street from Iona College. They're open from 11:30 in the morning to 1 in the morning the next day, obviously. 636-9533. And if I could, I would send Annie Spano my favorite burger. Pretty well done. Sauteed onions, just ketchup. Hold the mayo, hold the lettuce, hold everything else. And if we're going to be healthy and it's nice and well done and it's on a, I would have it on, I think, the pretzel bun. We like buns, you know, here. And I would also want a salad if I was eating healthy, but now wanting comfort food, lots of hot fries, and maybe a few chicken wings on the side. All righty, it's time for us to go to our next guest. He is the former county executive, reborn as a political analyst, but also still involved in government. Was one of the people who had to make or took part in the very critical decision this week to, in this case, the decision having been made to not have a presidential primary here in New York State, given that everybody else said, I ain't running. And I thought about it a little bit. And before we opened the mic, I thought about it. And you know what? If you don't show up to the party and you're not going to show up to the party, well, the bar ain't open. Let's talk now with former county executive, now political analyst, Andy Spano. Good morning, county exec.
Good morning, Bob.
Always good to hear your voice. You know, it was kind of interesting to have you on the show only a couple of hours before you had this decision to make and then read about it later. It could not have been an easy decision to make about not having a program.
Well, I didn't make up my mind until about an hour before.
Tell me, did our good offices here at Radio Westchester influence you? No.
Hey, you know, everyone I talked to influenced me, but you know, the big picture stuff was really what it came down to. I had this vision of Wisconsin and what happened in Wisconsin, you know, with people standing out there in the cold, with very few polling sites, etc. I had this, you know, that there aren't primaries throughout the whole state. So if you don't have a presidential primary, then fewer places have to open. So fewer people have to come out and vote or have to vote or touch things or do things.
Mm-hmm.
That was one of the considerations. The second one was there's a significant amount of money involved in this, because if you have to open everything, and if you have early voting, you have that problem. You have to open even more. But also the governor has indicated that, is actually ordered through his executive order, that we have to mail a application for a registration ballot to every single active and inactive voter in the state. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
So, and we have to put a stamp on each one so that there's no cost to the voter. So we would have to mail out an application, then you'd have to mail the application back, and then we have to mail the ballot to you, then you mail the ballot back, and each one of those would have to have a stamp paid for by the government, the local government. And if you have a presidential primary, it wasn't pick this guy, pick that guy, because everybody's out of the race. Only Biden's in the race. So what happened was, Sanders is out of the race, but he wanted to get more delegates at the convention if it's held in August and have more influence at the convention. And I didn't think that I should vote for something just because someone wants to have and make deals at the convention. I didn't think it was, even if one person died or two-person died because we called them out or they got involved in the election, plus we would damage the budgets of, significant amount of local government. So, we didn't want to get involved in that. And the reason I was able to vote on this is because the legislature had said that they passed a law that said that the two commissioners, me and my counterpart.
Who might that be?
Is a guy named Doug Kellner from New York City. He's another Democrat. There are two Democratic commissioners and two Republican commissioners. But the Republican commissioners cannot vote on this because it was a Democratic primary. So just the two of us vote. And it had to be the two of us voting the same way because otherwise it wouldn't be unanimous and we wouldn't have a majority. And it allowed us to remove any candidate who had said they're not in the race anymore. And if in removing them, we got down to one, then there would be no election. So we removed everybody except Biden, and we're down to one, and the election is canceled. I have gotten from all the other, there are two commissioners in each county, and those are the people we oversee statewide. We oversee the election and so on. So far, everything I've gotten from Republican commissioners and Democratic commissioners have been positive. The editorials throughout the state, the ones that I've seen, most of them have been positive. The only pushback we've gotten, of course, are from Sanders people and a lot of progressives. And I feel for them. I understand that. That was part of the stuff I had to weigh in on. But I think I did the right thing.
Well, now not just because I've grown fond of you. We have our differences, few though they may be. And I thought that you made the right decision. And because in my heart of hearts, I can't imagine that there won't be, in terms of putting together the platform, there won't be pressure put on Biden to include or at least listen to a lot of the things that the left wants to do. So they'll have a seat at the table. I don't think they needed delegates to do that. But again, I'm not in that field. That was my take. Is there any accuracy to that?
Absolutely. In fact, there's accuracy to that happening beforehand. Right now, the chairman of the Democratic Party in New York State is negotiating with the Sanders people for that very active participation in the convention. And so will the party, the National Party, do that with the Sanders supporters. I mean, you got to look logically. They don't want Sanders supporters to be viscerally against them and not come out and vote, which is what happened last time. So that will be done. So there were alternatives to having an active role. I always and then not all of them, but I always feel that some Sanders type voters are not Sanders voters, but they're active people against the establishment kind of thing.
Oh yeah,
similar to Trump voters.
Very similar.
And if Sanders wasn't there, some of them would vote for Trump.
It's interesting you say that. The first time in my life, last night, I was on when you apply for the different things that are available to small businesses, you literally have to set hours aside. And so, in fact, I'm running a couple of days late on a whole bunch of issues with the station because it takes so long to do this. But anyway, so I had my cell phone on, working on my computer, and I got a call. And I was able to sort of do two things at once. I got a call from a pollster. And it was a pollster having to do, without getting into names, with a race in Rye. And unfortunately, sometimes the questions don't. And I was comparing two candidates, and it was a Democratic pollster because I'm here in Westchester. And I kept trying to explain to him my sentiment, why I was so close with the two. I said, I'm still trying to figure out if this particular challenger, bear with me here, if this challenger is a member of Indivisible Westchester and New Roar and the very hard left that's shaken up politics. Well, we don't care about that. I said, well, you should. because a lot of us who are in the middle or center left or just plain old leftists, but not to the hard left, feel that they're running away with themselves, that they're hurting the schools, that they're hurting, that in the end it's going to come back to bite them the same way that, this was just what I was trying to get across to him, the same way that the Tea Party did on the right. But unfortunately, the questions that he asked didn't allow for that kind of nuance. Well, when push comes to shove, who are you going to vote for? I said, it will all depend on me determining that about that candidate, because I would prefer to vote for that candidate. But if she is all the way over to the left with that stuff, she ain't getting my vote. But so how do you account for that kind of subtleties in those kinds of surveys? Do you think he listened, or you think
You mean the pollster themselves?
Yeah, do you think he
you know,
heard that? Do you think he heard what I was trying to say?
Yeah, well, it depends on the pollster. It depends on the kind of poll. You know, I mean, let's talk about a sophisticated pollster, okay?
Mm-hmm.
They're already looking for that, okay? But the questions are designed in a way to give them the overt things that you see. You're for this guy or that guy. You like this. You like that. You're this. But they have an aggregate that's in the weeds, you know, in the background weeds,
Mm-hmm.
that they put together based on the totality of what they get from the poll. And they will pick things like that up. They will say, people over 65 don't want anybody on the left, They'll pick that out of the weeds.
I see.
Okay? So that's where a lot of the critical information is that you don't see. You know, you're 13 points ahead, but back here, you know, if you look at the people over 65, they don't like you know, and if you go there, you're going to be in trouble. Or if they think you're there, you're going to be in trouble. That's the way it goes.
Oh, because that makes a lot of sense to me, because I was trying to explain, because both candidates were very similar. And I'll just get real. There's been this dynamic here in Westchester, and I'm sure you're aware of it, where since Trump, almost everyone to the hard left who wants to bash Trump has been challenging incumbents. And it's only based, in fact, one person, and I'll go nameless for now because I want to be able to interview them and give them their fair share, but one person is running against an incumbent who's done a fine job and who just runs against bashing Trump all day. And it's that far left to trying to take advantage of the AOC dynamic. But a lot of people are beginning to see through that now. And in fact, in the case...
Yeah, and go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, but in the case of the call that I got, I would like to see the person replaced, because the person is way too cautious, way too, like, you can interview them for 5 minutes and they won't say anything, not a word. They wouldn't commit to their name if it wasn't on their birth certificate. So I would like to see the person replaced, but I don't want to see them replaced by just someone who's going to be another AOC. And go to my next line of questioning for you, which is screw up our schools by some of the things we're doing. So I don't know if they'll pick up that.
Well, let me in my decision.
Yes.
To not have a primary.
Yes.
Okay. I was bombarded with thousands of emails, calls, that kind of stuff from the left. And one of the things they wanted was a primary for president that would bring out a lot of people like them and overwhelm the races you're talking about.
Uh-huh.
So let's take Elliot Engel, who's running for Congress, and he's got a progressive against him.
Yes.
If you get more people like that coming out in the presidential, which doesn't mean too much, but now that they're there, they vote against Engel.
Right.
You have a better possibility of winning. And that was one of the arguments that was put out there internally with these people,
Mm-hmm.
which I don't think was relevant because it was a political argument. I wasn't dealing with politics. I was dealing with the safety of the people. That was my only real
again,
concern.
absolutely, yes.
And then you have a race up in Buffalo, If you remember, Representative Collins had to leave office. He got arrested because he was doing insider trading. Do you remember that?
Yeah,
Well,
absolutely.
there's a special election there for Congress. And what the Democrats wanted the presidential election was for the same reason. In the fall. You understand?
Yeah, absolutely.
They want more people coming out for something like that. Those kinds of reasons are not they're not relevant to what people want, especially in a primary. Let's say the guy is a great public servant, but he's not to the left. So you put up a lefty, and I shouldn't say a lefty. I move a little.
No, let's just say the
sometimes
far
myself,
left.
you know?
Let's just say the far left.
Yeah,
that's
let's
the
say
issue.
Yes, the alt left, as we would call it.
Yes.
Let's say you put someone up. So 10, 15% of the people come out in the primary. The active voters on the far left come out because they're really committed. They get now the candidate gets in the race. It's in a Democratic district, so they can go home and let's say it's Greenberg. They can go home and be elected without campaigning. All right.
Yep.
So now you have someone who thinks they have a mandate to be that way.
Yep.
And they don't.
Yep.
They don't. And, and then they get in. Now, I don't even mind them winning and getting in as long as they understand that's their goal, not how they act. In other words, you look around, you see what the possibilities are, you work with your guys, you try to get your stuff through as they're trying to get their stuff through. You don't act out and get nothing. That's my point. You don't act out and get nothing.
Hey, do you think the individual that ran against Ocasio, do you think had he run a proper campaign and really worked hard that he would have won? Because, there is a whole nother side to this story, and we're seeing it in the COVID crisis. We do have this incredible disparity now between the well-to-do and the poor, and it's getting worse for people of lesser means. So I understand that there's a rightly outrageous group of people out there. But would she have won, that notwithstanding, would she have won if, I guess Murphy was his name, if he'd have done a McCarthy, I forget.
No. Crowley.
That's it. I knew it was an Irish name.
Crowley.
Forgive me.
Joe Crowley, nice guy. He was also chairman of the party, I think, at that point in Queens. He was the going to be the second under Pelosi had he won. No, he wouldn't. He couldn't win. He couldn't win. It was her time. I don't care what he did.
Okay, it was the demographics.
He had to find her, doing some untoward thing that was horrible. He would have had to find that. It was her time.
Gotcha. All right, I want to go to something else, and I don't mind carrying you a few minutes after class because you may be the perfect person to help make.
I have time today. They moved my 9 o'clock.
Good.
Over,
Plus,
so
my 9 o'clock is going to run late. So, here's the deal. Mm-hmm. One of the things that the COVID crisis has reminded me of, A, and B, uncovered is more serious than even I had ever thought, is that a lot of people in this country, and particularly here in New York, go to bed hungry if they don't eat at school. What in how did we ever get to the point in the richest country on earth where if we don't feed our kids at school, they're not going to eat? And I know there's no easy answer, but you had a career in education and then a career in governing. This is complicated. Now, the easy solution was, of course, to give the kids breakfast and lunch at school, but it doesn't solve the larger problem of either if their parents don't have enough money, why aren't we giving them food stamps? If their parents don't have enough money, why aren't we helping them in another way? Do you follow me? Or is there something?
Oh yeah.
What's the issue here? What will we ever do about it?
The issue is the amount of income people have and this disparity of income. If you have an appropriate income, you can buy food. so let's take Westchester County, okay? You talk about we have food pantries in Westchester County. Now I don't know what the number is right now, but 7 million meals annually were served in our food pantries in Westchester County. Okay? And they weren't going to people on welfare. Because people on welfare, we have a way of helping them get food. Okay? That basically, if the money, if it comes in properly and they're taught how to buy, not buy this one, it's so expensive, buy that, so on and so forth. Cook, that can all be done, and they can exist on what they get. But the people in the food pantries are not those people. The people in the food pantries are the workers. People with 1 and 2 jobs in a family, who have a family of 4, they have 4 kids or 3 kids, can't feed the family because the rents are so high. So they take 50% of their salary and it goes to rent, and then they got 50% left for everything else they have, and they're only making $25,000 each or $30,000 each. And in Westchester County, that's poverty, So that's another. It's salaries and the ability to have a sustainable income where you can have your rent and buy your food. Now, if I were running, I always do this. So if I were running, what would I? You got to get a little slow. So I had the SAFER movement. That was SAFER. Mm-hmm. And the first S was a sustainable food supply for every person. And what I had done in that, what I had tried to do in that was take, one was SAFER, sustainable food supply, affordable housing, free education, and so on and so forth. And I thought that based on the Constitution, that everybody's created with, endowed by their creator, so enabled by life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. The pursuit of happiness cannot go on unless you can eat. It can't go on unless you're educated. It can't go on unless you're healthy. So that, and forget about the Constitution a minute. Go back to the Declaration of Independence. In the Declaration of Independence, it says whose responsibility that is. It is the responsibility of the government to make sure that happens. So my feeling was that government ought to be focused on these 5 items or 4 or 5 items. We could argue that I was only doing this as a personal activity. Mm-hmm. And once the government had created a system that did that, then they should go on and do everything else and so on. And in terms of money, the equality has to be at that level. That's the equality level. The equality level is everyone starts at the same base. And then after that, you go wherever you want. But you've got to make sure people have a good education. We know that if you don't go down earlier, so born to 5, and get kids then, some of them are so damaged by 5, I don't care what you do. You have a problem. We know that a lot of that damage comes from not eating. This guy Callender, who had the program in Harlem, I don't know if you're familiar with that.
Yes.
He had an alternative school there in Harlem, not an alternative school, a charter school. He started the school, but his school works on the parents, works on having enough to eat, works on talking to them. It works on the preschool stuff. I mean preschool before they get into school, and preschool stuff before they come to school, every day. Because that's the only way to work this out. And food is part of this.
I get it. Now, of course, there's a darker side to this too. I mean, there certainly is these families where they've got 4 kids, and by the time everything is done, they don't make much money. They can't afford to put food on the table. I get it.
And they're not eligible for welfare.
Right. Now, what do we as a society, though, do about those cases where maybe drugs are involved or people are just irresponsible? At what point do we hold? Well, we still have to take care of the child, but do we hold the family responsible? And that's got to be a difficult issue, given freedom, given due process.
That's a tough one.
That
That's
is
a
a
tough
tough
one.
one, isn't it?
I mean, you have Ed Koch. I remember this specifically. Ed Koch he's the homeless brother. There were a lot of homeless in the city at the time.
Mm-hmm.
So he said, all right, from now on, we're just going to take them off the streets and put them in a program. You know, if they look like they're mentally ill, we're going to put them in a mental health program. So he went out. He got this first one. Put the woman, I forget the woman's name, off the street. You know, put her into a program which would help her and so on. She didn't want to be in the program. She took them to court. She got a civil liberties lawyer,
Mm-hmm.
and he lost.
Wow.
If I want to give, if a guy says,
Wow.
you know what I mean? So that's why homelessness is so tough, because the responsibility is on the individual person. For instance, every person who goes to the government and says, I want a shelter, the government must supply the shelter, okay? Or whether you call that a home, et cetera, but they must supply a place for this person to go. The person doesn't want to go. And you can't, and they're allowed to be in the street. They're allowed legally.
It's
not, these people who want you to just wrap everybody up and, da. I would do it when we had like 0 degrees out, and where I would go get them, because you can't leave them in the street, they'll die. And still a lot of them didn't want to come.
No, I get it, and my head is all these things are rattling around, because when you said the person, in fact, I just got a text that said something to what I was thinking. Why have 4 kids when you don't make a lot of money? I realize it's after the fact, you can't let the kids starve, but it's a sticky wicket.
Suppose you're Catholic.
No, I get it.
And believe.
No, I know. I understand. It's just it's so.
Okay.
And then Ed Koch tried to solve this problem, or at least the homeless problem, and look what he did. So are we stuck with this? Is there any way to hold parents more accountable? I mean, if little Johnny keeps coming to school hungry, but mom and dad just aren't around, and he's living with grandma, and she's not home, or whatever the case may be, does DSS ever go?
We have. Look, I'm going to give you optimum situations, okay?
Yeah.
We have kids like that get identified. We got social workers that get put on the job to go visit, right? And evaluate the home and do all that kind of stuff, and then make evaluations of that, and so on and so forth. But that takes a lot of work, and it takes there are good social workers, and there are bad social workers. There are people who hide this or don't hide this. There are situations that you can't find out about it, because you can't get into the house and do all kinds of things you want to do. So it's not that easy. I remember the kid in school when I was working or was teaching, and I remember this kid that there was just something about him. He's always tired and so on and so forth, and and what he was doing is he was trying to do his homework. And he had so many people in the house, in some of these houses, you have 3, 4, 5 people in one room, sleeping in one room. Or they had noise. The kid would go in
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
The kid would go in a closet, lock himself in the closet with a flashlight. That's where he did his work. So you don't know, what's going on. There are systems in place for all these problems. They work in individual situations. That's all I can tell you. They don't work globally.
Okay, it is 9:08. We're talking with political analyst Andy Spano here on Radio Westchester. Are you making any more new movies? Any more YouTube?
I got to get something that I find serious, but I can put into some sort of humor that has a global understanding. I haven't found that. Once I find that, I will do another video
Now,
and put it on YouTube.
if I may, you're down in Florida. I know that's where you were when all this happened. Any sense, your state, we read yesterday they were ready to open up this and that, and then today the governor seemed to have a change of heart. What is the status down there?
Well, this governor really doesn't get it. He's like, he's not reporting the number of deaths. Like, he opened the pools, opening this, opening that, right? By the way, I don't live down here. I live up in Westchester.
No, I know
I'm down
that.
here because I got stuck down here.
No, I know that. Yeah,
So
you got stuck there. Yes.
Well, I don't want to stuck. It's better being here right now with this weather and so on.
Sure.
So we have a pool outside here for the complex, and the pool will be open. I got a note the other day is we can't open this pool. I mean, we gotta hire someone to be at the pool all day, watching everyone what they're doing. We got to make sure people are sitting 10 feet apart. We got to have this on that level and that on this level, and we can't open the pool. So, and I know our neighbors can't open their pool and so on and so forth. I guess if you have your own pool, it's been open all the time. It didn't matter, in your house. But so you go to a restaurant. I'm not going to a restaurant. They open today, by the way. All the restaurants open today. I'm not going to a restaurant. I mean, I can't imagine. I got to sit far away from the next table. I don't know what the wait is going to be. I don't know who the waiter is, and I don't know how these guys are going to make it with 25% of what their business normally was. But then again, there are people who are opening responsibly, and they're doing it on their own. This guy has no clue. I can't get it. But the guy, and the other thing is, the president put out guidelines. No one's following the guidelines and opening.
Well, yeah, everyone's just, it seems, going to put on the on switch. I think it's a very dangerous time. Well, let me ask you a question, Andy Spano. You were in the business a long time. And I'm going to ask you to put the most likely, even if it's cynical, interpretation of why this man who got elected governor, why he's behaving as he is.
He has an underlying problem that's constitutional. I don't mean constitutionally documented. I think it's a psychological problem that I don't want to put a label on because I'm not a pro, but I find he doesn't have a sense of humor. I find that he doesn't have a sensitivity to people who hurt and have difficulty. His narcissism gets in the way of every decision he makes, and I can go on and on with those kinds of traits. You put all the traits together and you say, this is a man with real problems, and he shouldn't be running this country. He shouldn't have the most powerful army in the world, military in the world under him. He shouldn't have the ability to make decisions that thousands of people may be dying from. He doesn't have the character, personality, and the psychological makeup to do that. That's all.
Now, what about the governor? Because actually my question was about him, but then I realized
Which governor?
The governor of your state
Governor.
down there, Florida. What's driving him?
What's driving him? That's the way he is. The way you see him, that's him. Okay. He is. A lot of people don't like him personally. Before he got on, that he's a very tough taskmaster. Likes to manage things, workaholic, He's just the opposite of Trump, just the opposite. But he is a product of his family. And he's got a lovely family. I know his father well. His mother's a doll, and they're a real family. And he brings that whole family thing to his governing and to what you hear on TV. When I watch now from Florida, I'm proud he's my governor. You know, I'm proud of that. He's saying the right things, and he says, this is a fact, and you check it, it's a fact. He says, this is my opinion. You don't have to follow it, but I just want you to know how I think. So it gives you the personal option of doing that. And I have Trump people here who I know well, who when it comes to him, they like him. And the funniest thing, I don't know if you heard this, but people in Texas who certainly are not into his politics, right? Are getting to like his accent.
Oh, no kidding.
When I heard that, yeah, they like his accent because they find it unique because they've never heard the New York accent that way for some reason. In other words, they've always heard it coming out of gangster movies or things that, you know, a harsh New York aggressive kind of
you
thing.
got a problem with that? Yeah, that kind of thing, sure.
Yeah, he's got this same accent, but now it's in a different, venue, and they like it. They find it unique and so on. In the beginning, like it. I read an article on this the other day. That's what I'm telling you about.
Very interesting. Very, very interesting. And so I guess I should end with, so I guess you got to go now. And I'm funny. you should have said to me when I questioned you about your video career, I'm funny how? What the bleep was so funny about me? That's my Joe Pesci. Andy Spano, thank you so very much. I'll talk to you again in a few days, all right? You know, you grew up in the Bronx. I grew up in Brooklyn, so I get that. You too. Hey, take it easy. All right already.
Take it easy.
What's the matter with you? Take care. Andy Spano, we're going to get a hold of our friends at
Bye.
We will be with you in a moment. This is Radio Westchester calling. Folks, we're getting ready for our long form interview. We didn't have a confirm, but they are like clockwork, and they've been trying to get in while we were finishing our previous interview, and we're glad to have them. So give us just a moment here to reset. This is the 9 o'clock hour of Radio Westchester. I'm Bob Marrone. This is Mornings with Bob Marrone. The 9 o'clock hour is long form, and we reserve this segment each week. It's our choice hour where we talk with people from choice. Those are the people that do work directly with the homeless to get them benefits, to get them off the street, to get them treatment if they need it for their whatever might ail them, from a drug addiction to financial catastrophe to any number of different things. We do this each and every Thursday, and it's brought to you by Aging Issues Management, the law firm of Paypania and Con, Dominic's Fine Cigars, and Plug-in Virtual Reality. Also, don't forget our friends at the Beachmont Tavern or our friends at the United Hebrew of New Rochelle, top-rated campus of senior care. Visit uhgc.org. And we get to it. I know they've been trying to get in. Good morning. You are on Radio Westchester. Thank you for calling.
Good morning, Bob. How are you?
This is Carol, is it not? Is this Carol?
No,
voice?
this is Miss this is Miss Augustine, supervisor from Troy.
Oh, okay. Tell me, give us a little bit about, we had, of course, a change in leadership there, and I wasn't sure if you were coming on today. I'm very honest about that stuff because I run the radio station by myself, given the problems with COVID. So now, give us your full name.
Ermion Augustine.
Amiana?
No, Ermion Augustine.
Spell that first name, please.
Ermione. Last name Augustin.
Augustin. Okay, I got it. So it's Ermion Augustine, correct? How do you pronounce the last?
Ermion Augustine.
Ermion Augustin. Okay, got it. Ermion, sorry about all that, but that's with the transfer of
It's all
power.
right.
I know Mr. Burgos moved on, and now Ms. Voicey is the person in charge of scheduling all this. So my apologies for my having to cover all those bases. But nonetheless, I'm glad we did. As you know, full disclosure, folks, I'm on the board of choice, and I have yet to interview one of these people who wasn't deeply committed to what they do. So first, Ermion, you've got to tell me a little bit about you. How long have you been with Choice?
It's almost 2 years. It'll be 2 years, June 1st.
2 years, June 1st. And your full title, are you one of the care coordinators? What's your role?
Well, I was a care coordinator, but now I'm a supervisor now.
Okay, you've got a lot of responsibility. So you supervise care coordinators. How many people do you have reporting to you? And go 2 levels down. How many people are you responsible for?
Well, currently right now I'm responsible for at least a total of 199 clients, and I supervise 3 coordinators. So I have my own caseload at this time.
Okay. Now, where'd you grow up?
I'm sorry.
Where did you grow up?
Oh, I grew up in White Plains all my life.
White Plains. Okay. And what drove you to do this kind of work?
Well, ever since I was younger, I always wanted to help people become stable. I've seen drug addiction, I've seen abuse, I've seen, mental health. So I just wanted to kind of give back and kind of give them their voice back.
Now, are you a social worker by trade? What'd you study in school? What's your background?
Currently, right now, I am going to Monroe College to get my social worker degree.
Uh-huh.
And moving forward, I want to get a master's.
Okay, you are. Now, what is required to get a social worker degree? Is that a 4-year program, a 2-year program? How does that work?
Well, bachelor's is 4 years. Right now, I'm doing 2 years, and I'm gonna go back for the year, and then I'm gonna go straight for my master's. So you're looking anywhere between 4 and 5 years.
Okay. Wow. So you got a lot of work to do. So what was your first job with Choice?
I was a client care coordinator.
Okay. Now, are you being on your board? Okay, I am well aware that it is a very, very difficult job, and it's got to be made difficult by the COVID crisis, which we'll get to. You have your own caseload and you supervise people. One of the things I've learned from being on the board and from all these interviews is your job involves a lot of more maintaining than bringing about perfect end stages. How do you keep your motivation in terms of
I
doing that?
disagree.
Well, talk to me.
Well, as a supervisor, I feel like I need to be there for my clients. So I try to balance the time of maintaining, but also sticking in the picture when it comes to meeting every client, being there for certain things where I know that they need someone by their side, and just to let them know that, a supervisor does care. So it's a lot more than just maintaining for me.
No, I do understand that, but tell me what it is, because when I say maintaining, and I say that in the most positive sense, that you're keeping people engaged, getting treatment. If they slip back, you don't give up on them, that kind of thing. But say more about what your end goal is and what you think is possible, and to your point that it's more than just maintaining. Say more about that.
Okay, well, for me, I just want to see someone get from point A to Z. So that definitely means, walking into a clinic with them, getting them a housing application, following up on those housing applications, because you work a lot of times with nothing good is going to come out of it. So, I've had a lot of good outcomes. One of them, I just got Social Security benefits for them. And this is a person who I had a really hard time getting through to. They never believed in anything. They didn't have a support system. And finally, 1 year later, they have benefits. They have something that they can, be able to pay for.
Yeah, hello.
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, we had some
I'm,
sort
I'm
of we
here.
had an interruption there. Okay. Um, I like what you're talking about, and I like what it means for the clients. How did this person become homeless, or what was their background to the extent that you can talk about it, that let them give up on life?
Well, they had a drug addiction, and usually when you do have a drug addiction, the family doesn't want to deal with you. There's a distrust with the family. There really isn't, any friends around because they don't know how to make friends anymore because they kind of went into a spiral. So you kind of got to step in like that family support sometimes.
And we know that you actually will go and pick them up and bring them to DSS. And how is that person now? You've got them Social Security. Do they have a place to
Oh, they're
live?
so happy. They're so happy. I got them into a long-term rehabilitation center. Um, charged now. And the next step is, finding a suitable room or a suitable apartment. They call me every other day and they just want to thank me. And I really don't do things for accolades. I just do it out the kindness of my heart. I want to see people do better.
Well, that says a lot about you, and it's typical of the people that I've met in your organization. We're talking with Hermione Augustine, correct?
Yes.
Okay, Hermione Augustine. She is a supervisor of client care coordinators. She's responsible for some 199 clients, as they call them, people that they're giving help to. What's the hardest part of the job?
Uh, the hardest part of the job sometimes would be balancing everything, I would say. But when you have the passion and the empathy for these people, you just automatically do it. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, clearly you do. I've got to go back to that, Hermione. Where does that come from? There are a lot of jobs. You can become a social worker and see people through, 7 people a day and have an easier life. What about you makes you want to do this? Because it's hard work, and we're going to get to what it's like now during the COVID
Mm.
crisis. Was there any
I have
individual
either.
situation? Did you have
Okay.
a relative?
I have a family member who has been diagnosed with schizophrenia, and I've seen how hard it was for them, amongst other things in my life. Domestic violence, many, many different things have happened to me. And, I wish that I knew that there were a lot more resources. And because I didn't know then, it makes me want to do more now. Knowing that there are so many resources that someone can turn to is really important because a lot of people, they don't really know what's out there for them and how do they do it. How do they put in documents? How do they get housing? How do they get benefits? They're just scared, and they
Well,
just go down a spiral.
yeah, and I understand from one of my last choice meetings that right now a lot of the clients are very frightened. They don't get their news from the best places. Some are afraid to walk out the door. Some are afraid they're going to get sicker. Some are literally afraid they're going to die. Plus, most of all of you are working remotely. What is the situation like now for your clients? We don't see a lot of homeless on the street as we normally do. Where are they, and how are you treating them during the COVID crisis?
How are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay.
How are you treating
So
them
for
during?
for me, I still try to speak to every last one of my team's clients. I still do food deliveries, of course, with my protective gear. But I don't want to go to sleep at night worrying about if someone went to sleep without having food.
Wow. So that you are delivering food. How many deliveries are you making a
And
day?
we have what they're amazing. Well, I do it once a week, and as of right now, I'm going to say I reached about maybe 50, 60 clients right now for
Where
those that don't have anything.
where are they staying?
Some are house, some are on the street.
Now, when you're delivering to food to somebody
Um,
on the street, have we gotten them a cell phone? How do you know where they are? Are they always in the same place, Hermione?
Yeah, so we have to make sure that we maintain all collaterals. And another useful thing is utilizing Facebook. People have Wi-Fi on, phones that are disconnected, but you can still connect to Facebook. So that also makes it easy.
Wow. So you're doing that. How often are you going out every day and dealing with these clients? And is it difficult? Is it more difficult doing it from home than if you were in the office?
I would really like to be back in my office only because I feel like I have, an office space where everything is right there. And dealing with people's medical records and things like that, you can't really bring that home. So, I wish I could turn around and be like, hey, here's this file or here's that file, but I can't do that.
Now, I take it you're in the White Plains office. Would that be correct of the three locations? Or do you work out of New Rochelle?
I work out of White Plains office.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. It's a nice facility there. Plus, I guess you don't have two with the clients coming in. You have all the training that they can't get right now and things like that. Now, why, at least my understanding is, what is their understanding, by and large, your clients' understanding of the crisis, and what are they doing to protect themselves from getting the COVID-19 virus?
To stay at home, keep washing their hands, especially when it comes to having a hard time breathing. Now, that's actually one of the signs where, we've been told that a lot of people have been put on ventilators. And one of the main reasons is that they're having a hard time breathing. So we've definitely let all our clients know that if for any moment, even if we tell them, go emergency if you have a hard time breathing, because we don't know if their immune system has been compromised or not, and we don't want to take that risk. So we're encouraging them, we're giving them, information regarding how to protect themselves, and we're just there as support and walking them through the steps if anything arises.
Well, that makes a lot of sense, actually, that you're going to be doing that. Now, let's get back to you for a moment. So here you are doing what can best be described as God's work. You're committed to it. Where do you ultimately want to take this career? And do you expect to be a choice a long time, for example?
Yes, I do expect to be a choice because I have told my clients that I'm going to still be there for them. So they want to make sure that, they will be able to see me. So for that reason alone, I'm going to be around for a while. In the long term, I see myself becoming a director, learning everything that I have to learn, becoming a director, and making a change. And
Wow.
That's really important to me.
Now, what did you do before this?
Before this, there's a couple of things. I'm actually a little new to the industry of but before then, I was in a bakery.
No
and I
kidding.
did a lot of bakery items. Yes.
Can you bake?
And that was fun.
Do you know how to bake?
Yes, I can bake.
Oh, this
Yes,
is a good
I can
thing.
bake.
Well, you should have come in person. You could have brought me some crumb cake. Oh, it was a handful of Cheerios this morning. My guest is Hermione Augustine. She is a supervisor of client care coordinators, has some 200 people under her responsibility who are clients. So you made the switch. Were you looking in the paper one day? Were you in school studying social work and heard about this? How did you hear about Choice? That's a big switch from baking bread to saving souls.
All right. So during that time, I had gotten previously. I had sent an application, submitted an application.
Okay, I know we have. There's probably an issue with your cell phone, but don't worry about it. Keep hanging in there. We'll get this done.
Homelessness, and things of that nature. So a year down the line, I'm thinking maybe I was going to get a call back, but no, a year down the line, they called me and they were like, hey, we have a position for you. And I was like, okay. And I ended up leaving that job and going to the residential for a little while. And one thing that was very clear was that they don't know a lot of resources They would come to me and ask different questions, and I'm like, I really can't answer this. What is really out there, And that's how I started. And then after that, I started looking on Indeed.com, and I had seen Choice, and I was like, hey, I'm gonna apply. And just because they do great work, they provide case management to underserved, and I wanted to serve the underserved. And I said, well, if they don't call me back, I'm going to apply 5 more times to let them know that I'm serious. And I eventually just got the call. And from then on, I had my own clients. I independently learned everything that I needed to learn about the organization and how we handle certain things. And then that's how I made it to become a supervisor.
Well, obviously you have leadership skills. Did you run the bakery, by the way, or did you know that you would move into supervision so quickly?
It took me almost a year.
Now,
Because I was passionate. I wanted to get things done. I remember saying that to myself.
It's very clear that you're passionate about it, and that's probably why you're so good at it. Now, the hours are demanding, and you get emergency calls as well. Have you ever been called to go out in the middle of the night, or if someone was in crisis? How does that work?
So, yes, I would answer those calls because I want to make sure that my clients are safe and they're okay. And I just take it a step at a time.
Wow. So when do you expect to be done with becoming a full-fledged social worker? How does when will you be done with Monroe, and then when will you start your master's program, or are you in a combined program?
So right now I'm just in a program for my bachelor's and then straight to my master's, because I've actually spoke to some of my colleagues who said that would be the fastest route. And so that's the route that I have taken for now.
Now, just a little bit more about you. The people that do what you do, it almost seems as if you've dedicated your life to it. But I'm sure you have. Do you have a family? Do you have children? Do you, what are you doing to balance all this out? Because I know the work is very stressful.
Well, I don't have any children. I do have a dog, and he's definitely my son.
Oh, what's the dog's name? What's his name?
His name is Bentley Augustin.
Bentley Augustin. Okay, Bentley Augustin. You even gave him his last name. We're talking to Hermione Augustin. Did. So, what kind of dog is he, Hermione? Hermione, what kind of dog is he? Is he a mutt? He's a Shih Tzu Maltese. He's a what?
He's a Shih Tzu Maltese. A Shih Tzu Maltese.
Those Maltese are so cute. I didn't realize how adorable they are. My goodness, they're lovable little dogs.
I know.
How old is he? How long have you had him?
Bentley is 7, and I've had him.
Okay, yeah, we have problems with your connection, and so we'll probably take an early leave. But I've gotten all I need to know. But before you go, you've got to tell me, what more does an organization like Choice, what changes would you like to see in our mental health system? For example, I know you wait sometimes 6 weeks to get shrinks, to get a psychiatrist for your clients. What would you like to see change most? Would it be housing? Would it be psychiatric care? Would it be better access? What would you like to see, Hermione?
I would like probably a therapist in the building. I would like to see a therapist in the building. If we're also talking about outside of Choice, I would like to see a little bit more assistance when it comes to case conferences.
I see what you're saying. Hey, listen, we got to run. I want to thank you for coming on today. And I didn't want to make you call back because you waited a long time. But as you can tell, somehow, whatever line you're on, someone keeps breaking into it. And I don't want to put you through that any longer. But I have to tell you, Hermione, you're a very special human being to want to do this. And you know what I don't detect before you go? I don't detect any bit of, gee,
Their face.
this is so difficult to do. I detect a happy warrior. Where's that coming from?
Uh, it's coming from a place, again, where I want to see other people happy. I want to see people become stable. I want to see people do better than what they are doing. Period.
Well, certainly you are. I hope to meet you soon. And once again, Choice, they're hiring, and the people that you guys, what you are, just extraordinary. Thank you very much, and you have a wonderful day. And I hope to meet you soon. Take care.
Welcome. Have a good day.
All right, thanks. Bye bye. Folks, I want to apologize for some of the sound issues we had, but it was still worth it to talk to this individual during Choice Hour. We're going to get out early today rather than have her get a new connection. We'll figure that out the next time. It's 9:39, and we want to thank our sponsors today: United Hebrew of New Charlotte, top rated campus of senior care. Visit uhgc.com. Aging Issues Management, the law firm of phpne, Dominic's Fine Cigars, and Plug-in Virtual Reality. Also, we want to thank our friends over at the Beachmont Tavern. Remember, they're open to 1 o'clock in the morning. They open at 11:30 in the morning, but they're open to 1 o'clock the next morning. You can order food and beverages from them. They deliver, but also you can order and go pick it up. You can't spend any time at the bar because that's closed, but you can get an alcoholic beverage. The law allows that right now for pickup. Their phone number, if you prefer to order and then go pick it up or call for delivery, is 914, of course, 636 9533 636 9533. Now, tomorrow, we've got a good show for you. We're going to talk with Janelle Albritton, Master of Public Health, and then we're going to try and have a little bit of fun. Steve Callis is going to be calling in, Jake again, and we're going to talk some sports. We're going to talk to the National Football League draft. Al Tarantino joins us. Hezi Aris joins us at 8:35, and then the Politics of Your Health, our first full weekly program. Hopefully, as we come out of the crisis, there'll be more of those. Politics and Health, starring Dr. Victor Sternberg, returning to the airwaves after, I guess about a year hiatus. Maybe a little less than that. Then he was on WVOX and WFAS before that, a terrific program, and we will take calls. And then starting next week, a reminder to those of you who inquired a couple of days ago, we're going to set specific times for calls and stick to those so that you can get a chance to call in and add to that. We do hope to start podhockey.com, the Never Again, the evolution of the Holocaust, and of course, we don't have a name for the show yet, but the show by Anthony Galetta, which will focus on growing up in New Rochelle. Thank you so much for listening as we take our early leave. Remember, we're here each and every mornings with Bob Marrone, at least during the week at 6:30. You can listen on RadioWestchester.com, Mornings with Bob Marrone. Radio Jar, actually some of you go straight to Radio Jar, which is our transmitter application, but many still go to RadioWestchester.com, Mornings with Bob Marrone. Spotify, we are on MyTuner Radio. We are also on iTunes and iHeartRadio, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, Periscope, and I probably missed a couple. If they broadcast, we're on it. I'm Bob Marrone. Thank you so much for listening today. See you tomorrow.